regarding a subject that you hit on earlier in the week, Glass-Steagall, I every now and then I have to call in and tell everyone that it had nothing to do with the 2008 recession.
Okay, explain.
If you want to look at what actually happened, is the Federal Reserve cut the Fed rate down to first it jacked it up to 6.5% for Bill Clinton trying to crash his economy. Mm-hmm. It didn't quite work, and then they took it down to 1%, and then George Bush came up with this program to try to put minorities and poor people into home ownership. Mm-hmm. And he even put down the down payment for some people who were on welfare. Mm-hmm. And he got these people into those homes with low interest rates. At 1% is what the Fed was at. And
were these ARM loans? Adjustable rate?
Adjustable mortgage rates. Yeah, that's how he was putting them into those homes.
And that's what blew it up when they went up?
What happened is those low Fed rates caused inflation. The Fed then had to jack the Fed rate up. All of those home loans were tied to interest rates,
right? The
Fed interest rates.
Right.
So when they had to jack the Fed rate up, that cost all of those millions of people, all of those poor people who were on adjustable mortgage rates, it cost all of them to lose those homes, and it put them into a state of near permanent poverty. They're still trying to work out of that.
Right.
And that's what eventually caused all of those banks, and the banks were in on it. The banks were actually following Bush's policies. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's kind of the reason why they didn't go after the banks, because if they go after the banks will say, hey, you guys are the one that told us to do this.
Yeah. But my understanding, too, and I get that narrative, and you're absolutely right, and I remember it well, Larry, but I also believe that the end of Glass-Steagall is what allowed the banks that held these sketchy mortgages to then consolidate them into investment vehicles, slice those investment vehicles up, basically leverage them to the sky and sell them to investors all over the world. And that leveraging and that kind of amplification of that was what brought the whole house down when the things came down. So it was bit of both.
You gave part of the refute to that earlier today when you talked about what happened when Ronald Reagan was president. Glass-Steagall was in full effect.
Yep, that's true.
And Ronald Reagan crashed our housing sector, and it almost caused us to have another recession.
Yeah, it was the S&Ls.
When you look at it, we generally have a recession every 7 or 8 years now. It used to be a recession every 4 years prior to FDR becoming president. Mm-hmm. He actually started changing the way he handled the economy, and it brought more poor people into the system, and they started seeing a little prosperity.
Right, it slowed down the oscillations.
And that knocked down the number of, if I ignore the fact of what he did to the Japanese.
Yeah.
What that did is that caused the number of recessions to be cut in half while he was president. So with people prospering, you don't get recessions. Mm-hmm. But the Republicans still were giving us a recession every 4 years. Right up to this day, they're still giving us a recession every 4 years, even when Glass-Steagall was in effect. And now that it's not in effect, they're still giving us a recession once every 4 years. It's like clockwork.
So, Larry, I'm curious your thought. We have only about 40 seconds here until we're going to hit a break, Larry. I'm curious your thoughts on my proposition that Moore's Law and the data centers are a bomb waiting to explode.
What actually happened with progress as far as these industrial revolutions are concerned, that actually spurs it on. Mm-hmm. And when you saw that activity that was going on when Bill Clinton was president, that was making the economy stronger. The stock market was going like gangbusters because all of the companies that use these new tools actually get more efficient.
Sure.
And some of the companies that don't adjust, they go away. And that's what we saw when Bill Clinton was president. And then what happened when George Bush came along, he and Alan Greenspan jacking the Fed rate up to 6.5%. They basically crashed our revolution, our technical revolution, and it went to China.
Well, that's an interesting take.
It did not crash the whole world's economy. It only crashed it in America.
Yeah. In addition to bringing you the Thom Hartmann program here on Free Speech TV and Video Media Online, we also have a whole set of ways you can interact with us and tools you can use to spread the word about the importance of democracy and the threats to it in our republic. First, there's your daily homework. Sue Nethercutt puts together a daily email newsletter that has a link to every story I discuss on the air, so you can find my sources and you can share them with your friends. It's free and you can sign up at thomhartmann.com. Second, I publish my daily take every day over at the hartmannreport.com website. That's also free if you want the daily 5 days a week rant in your inbox. No ads either. Third, we have the podcasts. There's the free 1-hour version of our daily show that's advertising supported. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts normally. And then there's also the podcast of the entire 3-hour show with no advertisements, and that's available by subscription over at thomhartmann.com. So check them all out at thomhartmann.com and hartmannreport.com.
We say fight back!
You know, one of the things I keep coming back to is this simple truth. When hard times hit in America, historically, culturally, politically, it has never been the billionaires who show up for us. It's communities, it's neighbors, it's mutual aid networks, it's unions, it's people looking out for each other because the institutions that are supposed to protect us won't. And here we are again. We're watching the rise of authoritarianism in real time. We're watching a political movement openly planning to roll back rights, dismantle democratic norms, punish dissent, and silence independent voices, particularly in the media. Trump and the people around him are telling us exactly what they intend to do, from weaponizing government to controlling the media narrative. And what do the corporate networks do? They bow. They soften their language. They both sides fascism. They're terrified of losing access or offending advertisers. It's unregulated capitalism doing what unregulated capitalism always does, protecting power by suppressing truth. But Free Speech TV does not bow. We don't have shareholders. We don't have corporate masters. We have you. And as long as you show up, we stay free. We stay honest. We stay independent, even if the rest of the media ecosystem caves under the pressure. And speaking of showing up for one another, this season of giving, we're also doing something I love, connecting your generosity directly to grassroots mutual aid. When you give $60, you can choose to have a portion of your gift go to RAM Medical, an extraordinary nonprofit delivering free medical, dental, and vision care to folks in remote and underserved communities. That's real solidarity, real help. So your donation does two things at once. It keeps independent media alive and helps meet urgent needs on the ground. If you're ready to stand up, call 877-378-8669 or visit freespeech.org/donate.
But it is so grossly unconstitutional. All of you know that the only entity that can take this country to war is the U.S. Congress. The president does not have the right. You know, I was talking a moment ago about the fact that we are living in one of the most difficult moments in the modern history of this country, and Trump just made it that much more difficult. That's just another burden we're going to have to carry, And that's just another message we're going to have to get out all over this country. The American people do not want more war, more death. It might be a good idea if we concentrated on the problems that exist in Oklahoma and Vermont rather than getting involved in another war that the American people do not want. What the establishment wants you to believe is that you have no power, that you can't accomplish anything. They have it all, nothing you can do. And in this moment in American history, what we have got to do in Vermont and Oklahoma, in Texas, all over this country, is stand up and fight back and tell them this is our country. And let me just say this. These are tough times, and you just heard 5 minutes ago, going to be even tougher. But in the midst of all of that, not just for our lives, but more importantly for our kids and our grandchildren, we have got to understand that despair is not an option. That's what they want us to believe. None of us have the privilege of hiding under the covers. The stakes are just too high. And I would like to remind all of you, short history lesson, that throughout the history of this country, what we have always seen.
It hits hard because it's true. The danger isn't abstract anymore. It's not academic. Fascism doesn't always come goose-stepping in with the banners and the uniforms first. It arrives when people are too exhausted, too busy, or too hopeless to resist. It expands when media outlets become timid or compromised or bought out. It grows when truth gets pushed aside to make room for comfort and profit. But that is not what we do on Free Speech TV. We don't trade truth for access, we don't soften the edges to please a sponsor, and we don't pretend that authoritarianism is just another side of politics. We say what's real. We say what's dangerous. We say what needs to be said, even when the powerful would rather we stay silent. And that's why your donation matters right now, maybe more than it ever has. Because if independent media is going to survive a second Trump administration, if movement journalism is going to hold the line, it's going to be because grassroots supporters like you made that possible. This is mutual aid too. We support each other so we can keep telling the truth. And don't forget, a $50 donation this season can also directly support Ram Medical, extending your impact to people who need help today. That is the kind of solidarity that authoritarianism fears. Communities taking care of each other, refusing to abandon one another. So please.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Hey, top of the Tuesday to you. America's new political reality. Donald Trump decides which beliefs are safe. We'll talk about that in a moment. Also, as the Supreme Court's set to hand more power to Trump. And Fox so-called News is freaking out over Mamdani, the new mayor of New York City, telling immigrants that what their rights are. Right after border agents broke into the fence and entered the yard of the father of a dreamer in the U.S. since a child. He locked his door and waited 2 hours for them to leave. In the second hour of our program, why are Republicans calling control over women a family value? Misogyny is coming back like it's fashionable again, at least in GOP circles. I mean, literally there are Republicans, public Republicans now, saying women shouldn't be allowed to vote, women shouldn't be in business. I mean, this is getting wild. Also, Zelensky is refusing to bow to Putin and Trump. In the third hour of our program, Ron Wyden exposes the folly of the farmer bailout and tariffs. I'll tell you all about that. Also, Geeky Science is a dementia vaccine. It could be real, and some of us have already taken it without even knowing it. Don't let Bob Kennedy know. He might distract him from doing pull-ups at the airport. Yes, seriously, I'll tell you about that one too. So, a wild day. Wild stuff going on here. It's just really quite remarkable. I don't, have a better. Anyway. So today's, my daily take over at HartmannReport.com is titled America's New Political Reality. Trump decides which beliefs are legal. Now, back in September, And actually, in the first week of October, I mentioned this. We talked about this right here on this program on the air. And I wasn't really taking it seriously. I thought this was virtue signaling to the Trump base, the freaks, the genuine haters, the white Christian nationalists, the people like Pete Hegseth who have the Crusader cross tattooed on his chest. I mean, these kinds of nutcases who think that if you're not a white male Christian, you're not really an American, that kind of stuff. There was this national security presidential memorandum that Donald Trump issued, and back in September, just 4 months ago, or 3.5, whatever. And it included, it said that the government was going to come after you essentially, or investigate you if you displayed any of the indicators of potential domestic terrorism. So if any of these things apply to you, according to this memo, which again, back in September, I thought was just virtue signaling like a joke. If any of these things apply to you, you might be a domestic terrorist and the FBI might come after you, or at least, that's the way it was presented. And they included, and I quote, this is from the memo itself, from Trump's National Security Presidential Memorandum number 7, quote, anti-Americanism, anti-capitalism, anti-Christianity, extremism on migration, extremism on race, extremism on gender, hostility toward those who hold traditional American views on the family, hostility toward those who hold traditional American views on religion, and hostility toward those who hold traditional American views on morality. So have you ever spoken ill of our country or its policies, particularly under Trump? That would be anti-Americanism. Have you ever trash-talked capitalism or praised socialism or, on social media? That would be anti-capitalism. Ever publicly questioned Christianity or profess loyalty to Judaism, Islam, Hinduism, paganism, or any other non-Christian belief system or religion? Have you embraced the trans or the larger queer community? Have you spoken out in defense of single parents or gay marriage or same-sex couples adopting children? Have you said things or carried a sign that might hurt the feelings of masked ICE agents, Donald Trump or Kristi Noem? I mean, when this came out in September, just imagining that any of those things could trigger an FBI investigation of you or me just seems so bizarre that I didn't take it seriously. I mean, I reported on it here and I talked about it and I said, this is bizarre stuff. And neither did the mainstream media. This was a one-day story and it was pretty much confined to MSNBC. I'm not even sure it made CNN. It was just a one-day story. I wrote about it in a October Saturday report. I did an article about it, and then that was it. Again, I didn't think that this was an actual plan to set up a Russia-style police state right here in America. I thought this was just virtue signaling to the Republican base. Turns out I was wrong. Now, in a second bombshell report, Ken Klippenstein has obtained and published a copy of a memo that Attorney General Pam Bondi sent to the FBI on December 4th, which is what, last Thursday? Last week, ordering the FBI to actually begin Russia-style investigations of people and groups who fit into the categories that I just described. Not only that, she ordered the FBI to go back 5 years in their research and their investigations of our social media posts, our protest attendance, and any other activities to find any evidence of our possible following of these now forbidden views and beliefs. Just being an anti-fascist, according to Pam Bondi, being opposed to fascism, according to Pam Bondi, is now apparently a crime in America. This is from her memo to the FBI. This is the official memo from Attorney General Pam Bondi to Kash Patel, to the director of the FBI, directing him to direct his agents to investigate people who are anti-fascist. It said, quote, further, This anti-fascist ideology that paints legitimate government authority and traditional conservative viewpoints as fascist connects a recent string of political violence. Carvings on the bullet casings of Charlie Kirk's assassins' bullets read, "Hey, fascist, catch," and "Bella Ciao," an ode to anti-fascist movements in Italy. ICE agents are regularly doxxed by anti-fascists, and calls to dox ICE agents appear in the same sentence of opinion pieces calling the Trump administration fascist. End of quote. At the same time, ICE has a larger budget than any police agency in the world outside of Russia and China, bigger than any police agency in the United States, ICE. And the Brennan Center just yesterday published a report titled, "ICE Now Wants to Go After Dissenters as Well as Immigrants." Dissenters, as in protesters. And the Brennan Center for Justice report says that ICE has now acquired, quote, "a smorgasbord of spy technology, social media monitoring systems, cell phone location tracking, facial recognition, remote hacking tools, and more." They have, they've got these Stingray devices that imitate spoof cell phone towers. So your phone connects to them and they can, listen to everything you're doing and saying and download everything on your phone. They're tying into a nationwide network of license plate readers, airport facial recognition systems, and using federal drones to monitor people that they consider enemies of the agency. They're carefully combing your social media content for posts, likes, and reposts. Brennan Center said, quote, "Homeland Security Investigations recently signed a multi-million-dollar contract for a social media monitoring platform called Signal Labs that claims to ingest and analyze more than 8 billion posts a day. The agency is also paying millions to Penlink for monitoring tools that gather information from multiple sources, including social media platforms, the dark web, and databases of location data. They're also acquiring Russian-style spy software that can remotely target your phone without you realizing it, infect it with the equivalent of an ICE virus, and then have your phone send them everything you do, say, hear, or see on an ongoing basis for months. The only clue you'll have is that your phone's battery seems to be draining rapidly." I mean, this Putin-style sort of search without a legal warrant is the same sort of thing that caused, the King George III's officers were doing against the colonists. Although they were doing it the old-fashioned way, kicking in doors and spying on people in person. And that's why we have the Fourth Amendment, the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated. It's also a clear violation of the First Amendment's protection of our rights to free speech. When Putin ended democracy in Russia, he pretty much did the same thing. He defined the people who protested his policies as domestic terrorists and had his secret police go after them. This is chillingly un-American. So reach out to your representatives, number for the Senate and the House, 202-224-3121, and let them know your opinion of this new aspect of Trump's imperial reign. And pass this message along to wake up other people. I mean, if Congress and the courts refuse to give serious oversight and regulation of these agencies, we may all one day soon be facing the same neo-fascist brutality that killed Alexei Navalny and imprisoned so many of his supporters.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Trump seems to think that Putin is his role model. This is just astonishing. We'll be right back. And welcome back. Harold in Santa Barbara, California. Hey, Harold, what's on your mind today? Thanks for listening to KPFK.
I'm a little surprised. I'm jumping on your bandwagon, but if Palace jumps off, I'm jumping with him. But you said something that hit home. I mean, number one, all my phones, all my emails have been hacked like 6 years ago. In my hometown of Redlands, the police chief was arresting people without any cause, jailing us, and then for me, they made me post $50,000 bail, and I still haven't gotten it back. And they did the same thing to marijuana dispensaries. What I really called about was the fact of what's happening to farmers. I'm a farmer, and I can't even get equipment for my Kubota tractor. all the equipment and parts you need is going to construction companies. And when you're a farmer, you can't get it. And water,
is that
because
of the tariffs, Harold?
We're fighting the big, what?
Is that because of the tariffs?
No, it's because of what you just said. We got a new police state.
Mm.
They don't want the farmers to grow. They need that water for all these warehouses. There are facades for this AI machine. So they need that water.
So they're making it rough on you guys and the farmers. Well, Harold, thanks for the information. Thanks for filling us in.
Thanks.
Susie in Willits, California. Hey, Susie, what's on your mind today?
Greetings, Tom. Just want to talk about the rudeness I'm seeing in the media, the crassness from Trump with reporters.
Yeah.
And he never gets down on the
specifically
man.
female reporters. He doesn't do this to men.
That's right. That's what I'm saying. Like calling them to such derogatory or nasty, but no one even sticks up for them. I mean, there's tons of people standing around. I don't understand why someone doesn't say something.
Yeah. Well, they're all.
I'm a retired.
Here's the thing, Susie. If they speak up, if any of them speak up, then they'll get kicked out of the press room. And if they get kicked out of the press room, they might lose their jobs. So they're trying to protect a paycheck and probably their health insurance.
Oh my! That's the most absurd thing I've ever heard. But
well, it's true.
It's reality.
Yeah.
But I'm a retired middle school teacher, math teacher, and this one boy, like he was one disrupting the class, and then another was he said some mean things to this girl. I don't remember what he said, but it made her cry.
Mm-hmm.
And I just called him out. I said, you're leaving. Go to the office right now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I stood up for the girl, and the girl actually gave me a hug afterward.
That's sweet.
And so I got in trouble because I called the parents of the boy during, I guess, some break, and told him about it, and I thought it was very inappropriate, and he should apologize to the girl, and I got in trouble for calling the parents.
Wow.
I mean, really, the principal came down on me. You don't call people, during the break, and you don't do that. It's like, well, okay.
Yeah, I get it.
It just was, any rate, but I understand what you're saying. I feel like people need to stand up a little more.
I wish they would. I really wish the other reporters would stand with these women who are getting trashed by Trump. This is just obscene. I get it, Susie. Susie, thank you for the call. It's nice to hear from you. And happy holidays. 20 minutes past the hour. Change starts with you. You can be calling your Democratic or Republican representatives to let them know what you think by calling 202-224-3121. It's the Capitol switchboard. It'll get you right through to them. You know, other countries enjoy benefits like free health care in college, modern mass transit, affordable housing, food, and drugs. They also have inexpensive internet and phone service without companies listening and selling their information. Schools that don't need to mention school shooters. Streets and parks filled with pedestrians and children instead of tents and homeless people. We, on the other hand, have the world's largest collection of billionaires. Most Americans probably didn't realize this was the choice they were making back in the election of 1980 when Reagan and Bush promised morning in America. But here we are. We have been just basically sold out to the billionaires by all these years of Republican, Reaganomics. What do we do about it? Well, there's a lot we can do about it, and it starts with getting politically active. There's a great op-ed about this over at HartmannReport.com. It's titled, America Chose Wealth Over Well-Being. Check it out.
They said it was a rumor, said don't believe that talk. But now the doors are closing on the right to speak and walk. They call our anger danger, They call our signs a threat, like loving this country means you never question it. They watch the posts you made back then, they track where you have been, face on every camera, a file they keep you in. And if you say this isn't right, they write it down again. So fear can do the job before they ever can. If they can scare us silent, they don't need chains or guns. They're calling protest terrorism, calling dissented crime. If they can punish words and marches, they can steal our rights in time. So I'll raise my voice, no I won't hide it, no I won't go quiet this time. No warrant for thought, no jail for telling truth.
24 minutes past the hour, so grave danger, warnings as Supreme Court, this is the headline over in Common Dreams, warning as Supreme Court looks ready to hand Trump even more unchecked power. Here's the deal. Congress has created a number of autonomous or semi-autonomous agencies. The Fed is probably the most famous, the Federal Reserve. There's also the Consumer Product Safety, or whatever it's called, the CPSB, or the one that looks over banks and protects you. There's a bunch of them. And back in 1935, in a decision called Humphrey's Executor, the Supreme Court unanimously ruled that these agencies were designed by Congress to be independent of political influence, and therefore the president could, appoint people to their boards or as their chairpersons, for the period, like the 10 years or whatever. Typically, they were 10-year periods so that they would cross multiple administrations. Could appoint them, but couldn't fire them. And yesterday, what's going on here is that this is Trump v. Slaughter, and Rebecca Slaughter was a member of the Federal Trade Commission. And she was trying to enforce our antitrust laws, and so Trump fired her. And so Justice Sonia Sotomayor said to John Sauer, Trump's former criminal defense lawyer and now the Solicitor General, said, "You're asking us to destroy the structure of government." Elena Kagan said, "Once you go down this road, it's a little hard to see how you stop." But it sure appears from the way that John Roberts is speaking, well, all of the conservatives are speaking, that they're going to say, okay, yeah, the president can just fire anybody he wants. They're all technically under the executive branch, and so, under this unitary executive idea that, the president can just fire anybody he wants. No problem. Now, there is some speculation that the Supreme Court will try to carve out an exception for the Fed, because they realize that, politicizing the Fed could destroy the entire American economy, whereas politicizing the Federal Trade Commission just allows giant mergers where billionaires get richer and giant corporations get more powerful, which is fine with the conservatives on the court. In fact, it's exactly the sort of thing that they want. So this, we've got a court now that is just completely remaking the power of the presidency. They're turning Donald Trump from a president into a king. They've already given him immunity from, the crimes in office. They literally said he could assassinate a political opponent and he would be immune from prosecution when they granted him that immunity. That was, Sotomayor brought that up, and yep, that's fine. And now this. These people are just totally out of control. They want to make America an oligarchy.
Listening to the Thom Hartmann program. Call 202-808-9925.
They want to make America a permanent oligarchy, in fact. Fox News is freaking out about Mamdani. I'll tell you about that right after the break, and I'll pick up your call. Stay with us. You know, one of the things I keep coming back to is this simple truth. When hard times hit in America, historically, culturally, politically, it has never been the billionaires who show up for us. It's communities, it's neighbors, it's mutual aid networks, it's unions, it's people looking out for each other because the institutions that are supposed to protect us won't. And here we are again. We're watching the rise of authoritarianism in real time. We're watching a political movement openly planning to roll back rights, dismantle democratic norms, punish dissent, and silence independent voices, particularly in the media. Trump and the people around him are telling us exactly what they intend to do, from weaponizing government to controlling the media narrative. And what do the corporate networks do? They bow. They soften their language. They both sides fascism. They're terrified of losing access or offending advertisers. It's unregulated capitalism doing what unregulated capitalism always does, protecting power by suppressing truth. But Free Speech TV does not bow. We don't have shareholders. We don't have corporate masters. We have you. And as long as you show up, we stay free. We stay honest. We stay independent, even if the rest of the media ecosystem caves under the pressure. And speaking of showing up for one another, this season of giving, we're also doing something I love, connecting your generosity directly to grassroots mutual aid. When you give $60, you can choose to have a portion of your gift go to RAM Medical, an extraordinary nonprofit delivering free medical, dental, and vision care to folks in remote and underserved communities. That's real solidarity, real help. So your donation does two things at once. It keeps independent media alive and helps meet urgent needs on the ground. If you're ready to stand up, call 877-378-8669 or visit freespeech.org/donate.
But it is so grossly unconstitutional. All of you know that the only entity that can take this country to war is the U.S. Congress. The president does not have the right. You know, I was talking a moment ago about the fact that we are living in one of the most difficult moments in the modern history of this country, and Trump just made it that much more difficult. That's just another burden we're going to have to carry, and that's just another message we're going to have to get out all over this country. The American people do not want more war, more death. It might be a good idea if we concentrated on the problems that exist in Oklahoma and Vermont rather than getting involved in another war that the American people do not want. What the establishment wants you to believe is that you have no power, that you can't accomplish anything. They have it all, nothing you could do. And in this moment in American history, what we have got to do in Vermont and Oklahoma, in Texas, all over this country, is stand up and fight back and tell them this is our country. And let me just say this. These are tough times, and you just heard 5 minutes ago, going to be even tougher. But in the midst of all of that, not just for our lives, but more importantly for our kids and our grandchildren, we have got to understand that despair is not an option. That's what they want us to believe. None of us have the privilege of hiding under the covers. The stakes are just too high. And I would like to remind all of you, a short history lesson, that throughout the history of this country, what we have always seen.
It hits hard because it's true. The danger isn't abstract anymore. It's not academic. Fascism doesn't always come goose-stepping in with the banners and the uniforms first. It arrives when people are too exhausted, too busy, or too hopeless to resist. It expands when media outlets become timid or compromised or bought out. It grows when truth gets pushed aside to make room for comfort and profit. But that is not what we do on Free Speech TV. We don't trade truth for access. We don't soften the edges to please a sponsor. And we don't pretend that authoritarianism is just another side of politics. We say what's real. We say what's dangerous. We say what needs to be said, even when the powerful would rather we stay silent. And that's why your donation matters right now, maybe more than it ever has. Because if independent media is going to survive a second Trump administration, if movement journalism is going to hold the line, it's going to be because grassroots supporters like you made that possible. This is mutual aid too. We support each other so we can keep telling the truth. And don't forget, a $50 donation this season can also directly support RAM Medical, extending your impact to people who need help today. That is the kind of solidarity that authoritarianism fears. Communities taking care of each other, refusing to abandon one another. So please, call 877-378-8669 or visit freespeech.org/donate. Be part of the resistance to silence, to fear, the resistance to corporate control. Did you know that every weekday we send out an email before the show giving you all the topics coming up so you can be fully informed and ready to interact with our program? Or that after the show we send out Sue's Stack, a list of every topic I've discussed along with clickable hot links to every source of information I've shared with you on the air? It's all completely free and available over at thom.tv, THOM.tv. Check it out. Welcome back. 34 minutes past the hour, and Fox News freaking out. Mayor-elect Zoran Mamdani yesterday released a video advising immigrants. There's some 3 million immigrants who live in New York City, embracing them and advising them of their rights with regard to ICE, noting the difference between a judicial warrant and these pretend warrants that ICE is using to arrest people, and saying you don't have to talk to them, and you know they can't come into your home, and all this kind of stuff. Pretty straightforward stuff. And so Fox News just freaked out about it. I mean, they had this panel, and during the panel, Molly Hemingway said the video is proof that Mamdani, quote, cares more about illegal aliens than he does American citizens. And then Nicole Safier basically lied and said Mamdani is telling immigrants to evade federal law enforcement, and saying that the video was, quote, obstruction of the federal agency. She said if a private citizen did it, we'd be arrested for aiding and abetting a criminal. Really? You can get arrested for aiding and abetting a criminal by telling people what their constitutional rights are? Every police officer in America, when they make an arrest and they advise people of their rights, is aiding and abetting a criminal? Seriously? I mean, this is all part of Fox's smear campaign against Mamdani. They don't like this guy. He's he's a democratic socialist. Oh my God. He's Bernie Sanders, only he's Muslim. They have portrayed him in the during the election. They falsely portrayed him as anti-Semitic. They falsely called him a terrorist sympathizer. They falsely said that he was a communist. He would confiscate property. Sean Hannity, after the election, said, I have friends of mine in New York. My phone is blowing up. They're officially depressed and scared. Yeah. Fox is just, they sell fear. That's what this network does, is it's peddling fear, and that's all that's going on. It's just a sad state of affairs in America right now. It really and truly is. So what's on your mind today? Byron in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Hey, Byron, what's up?
Hey, Tom. Happy holidays.
Thank you. Back at you.
Thank you. I had a hypothetical. In 1974, when Richard Nixon was in trouble with the Watergate scandal, if the Republican propaganda machine of today was around then with Fox News, or as I call it, Fixed Noise, and talk radio, which I call balk radio, do you think Nixon would have been able to avoid resigning and would have been able to survive an impeachment?
Yeah, I do.
I do too. And likewise, in 2021, when Trump was impeached for the second time after he had already left office, if the Republican propaganda machine was not in place then, do you think he would have been able to survive an impeachment?
No, I mean, you're absolutely right, Byron. This massive Republican propaganda machine that they started building out of the 1980s when Ronald Reagan fast-tracked Rupert Murdoch's citizenship in the United States so he could buy and own television stations. And then, of course, in the 90s, he started Fox News, Fox so-called News. And you've got 1,500 right-wing radio stations. You've got all these. You've got the major social media sites, Facebook and what used to be Twitter, owned by right-wingers who are apparently tilting their algorithms to the right. I'm finding increasingly it's difficult to find some things with Google searches. Because Google, as far as I can tell, has spun their search algorithms I don't know the details of how it works, but I know when I search for my own stuff, SITE:hartmannreport.com is a command that you can give Google search, and then I look for things that are that literally I published on my own site, my own newsletter. Google doesn't return them to me. I have to go to DuckDuckGo to get stuff off my own site.
Wow.
Yeah.
Real quick, like in Trump's second impeachment in 2021, he had already left office. Mm-hmm. So even if they had been able to get the 2/3, I think they got 57. They needed 67 votes to impeach him. What could they have done? The only punishment I can understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, is they could have forbid him from running last year as a presidential candidate with simple majority. Simple majority. But they needed to have convicted him first in order to get to that point, right? Is that correct?
That's right. It wouldn't have been a simple majority. It's a simple majority in the House.
Let me finish. But it's a simple majority to vote to prohibit him from running again. The 2/3 is to convict him.
No, the prohibition against running again is associated with the conviction. The Constitution says that when you are impeached, you are prevented from ever again holding public office.
Well, I've read that it would have to have been a separate vote, and it only required a simple majority.
I believe that's wrong. I'm pretty certain. I mean, maybe
because that was the only punishment they could have given him because he had already left office, right?
Right, but the whole point was to, number one, get it on the record that this guy, committed crimes while he was in office, and number two, to prevent him from running for office again. And of course, he did run for office again 2 more times, and he won the second time, or the third time. So
they had a chance to prevent him from running last year, which would have changed history completely, right?
That's right. And Mitt Romney, you'll recall, said that a number of his colleagues wanted to vote to impeach him and thus prevent him from running again, but that they were afraid for the safety of their families. And Romney himself had said that he was spending, was it $5,000 a day or something like that, some amazing amount of money on security for his family because they were getting death threats because he had voted to impeach Trump. So, Byron, thanks for the call. I got to move along, but thank you. Bruce in Los Angeles. Hey, Bruce, what's up?
Hi, hey. Tom. I'd like to just offer a bit of historical perspective and a bit of ammunition for those who want to speak up in favor of the mayor-elect in New York City, Mr. Mamdani. Mm-hmm. So, in World War II, during World War II, in every country, they paint. You mentioned this earlier. That, Mamdani, Fox is painting Mamdani as a socialist, he's an anti-Semite, and so forth. In every country that the Nazis invaded, and in fascist Italy, the resistance movements in each of these countries, I could name them all for you. I'm, kind of an amateur historian of World War II. The resistance movements were led by socialists and communists.
Generally speaking, yeah.
Yes. This is a fact of history. There were no roving bands of capitalists resisting Hitler, resisting Mussolini. In fact, I could give you a list of American capitalist companies that were doing business with the Nazis. Most notoriously, you may know a book by a man named Edwin Black, IBM and the Holocaust. You know the story, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. IBM provided them with the equipment to track all the Jews.
Yeah, the tattoos on I've seen, you've probably seen as well, you know, the elderly Jewish people with the tattoo on their wrist.
Yeah, I used to know someone with a tattoo.
A routing system, okay, a numerical routing system was developed by IBM.
Yeah,
So,
I was in part raised by a couple who had tattoos from the camps.
Okay. So just everyone, please bear this in mind. The resistance movements, and this is why Hitler, the first people he went after in Germany were the Communist Party, which had the largest Communist Party outside of Russia at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Numerically, it was Jewish people that bear the brunt of Nazism. But the first people he attacked in Germany were the communists.
Absolutely. Yep.
If I could quickly...
Actually, the first people he attacked were the trans people. When he went after Magnus Hirschfeld and his Sexology Institute in Berlin. That was the big book burning.
Okay.
That happened, you know, just months after, maybe even weeks after he became chancellor. But so first he went after the trans people, then he went after the communists. Okay. But point taken, Bruce.
Well, yeah. If I had to offer just one other thing, also related to Mamdani, what you just mentioned about in New York. Well, it's happening all over the country. You know, I have a book that reproduces propaganda from World War II, from Germany and Italy. There was a poster that was disseminated across Germany in the early 1930s. It depicts, there's kind of a little cartoon map of Germany, and there's a broom that's sweeping all these people out of Germany.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the caption reads, "The Nazis sweep out alien elements."
Yep.
Okay.
Alien elements was a famous way of describing Jewish people, although it also included, leftists. So yeah, excellent points all, Bruce. Well said, and thank you for the history lesson. Appreciate the call. It's 45 minutes past the hour. We'll be back with more of your calls in just a minute. Stay with us.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Time to watch Transatlantic again on Netflix. 45 minutes past the hour. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Michael in Gainesville, Florida. Hey, Michael, what's up?
Yeah, hi. I just wanted to touch bases with you real quickly to be sure that we don't echo kind of the oligarchs' false psyops, civil war mongering, and blaming of everything and telling us that we're going to have a civil war and that all we care about is food. What we care about is things like the fact we're dying 10 years sooner than any other similar.
Yeah, we have a much shorter
country.
lifespan than Canada, for example, and there's a 7 or 8 year differential between blue states and red, between the longest lifespan in blue states and the shortest lifespan in red states, which I believe is Louisiana.
And we could go on, and 500,000 dead recently, needlessly, as deaths
from COVID.
And the genocide that our military funds, excess millions of wars that were over greed, not over wars over protection or defense.
Yep.
And what happens is, of course, what happened, you do if there's a bear, and if laws don't work, you can't argue with the bear. And it wants to eat you, you have one choice. It's what happened in France. And chaos ensues and violence results because what
happened in France? Are you referring to the French Revolution or the French resistance in World War II?
Well, there's a reason that there's big boats and bunkers are being built by oligarchs. They fear us.
Yeah.
Their illness and psychopathy is...
I don't think they so much fear us. I think that if you look at the way and the places where these bunkers are being built, Zuckerberg's got a big one in Hawaii, I guess. But it looks to me like they're getting ready for climate change.
Well, that would be working with
which in and of itself will produce,
they don't
social
think
and
we're going to be
political
safe if we're in danger. Exactly.
Yeah.
But what happens if you're milking the middle class? Then you need big boats and bunkers, because the middle class, when you're dying, it counts more than even climate change, which is very slow and will certainly kill lots of us, but we're dying more quickly from greed than even
I get it. I get it.
Climate change.
Yeah, we're starting to repeat ourselves. I'm with you, Michael. You said it very well. Thank you. Robert in Los Angeles. Hey, Robert, what's up?
Morning, Tom.
Hey.
First, all glory to God and His Son, Jesus Christ. Second, there's a couple of points I'd like to bring up to you, and if I could do that uninterrupted. Point number one, you said on 2 occasions that we were not in the Hague Convention. We are.
Two, we what? I can't hear you. You're on speaker, and it's hard for me to understand what you're saying.
We are in the Hague Convention. Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah. No, we're not a signatory to the International Criminal Court.
Well, we are in the Hague Convention. Number two,
I don't know what the Hague Convention is.
Interesting. Point number two, how many of the founding fathers said that democracy would lead to tyranny? 4 that I know of. Point number 3, part of the Constitution, the 11th Amendment, no one of a foreign national can enjoy the rights that we have. If you are a national of another country, you cannot get the same rights we do. That's the way that ball rolls.
Yeah. Okay, Robert, thank you for the call. If you're in the United States, even if you're not a citizen, you are protected by the United States Constitution, and you have all the rights that the Constitution provides. We'll be right back. Hey, thanks so much for sharing our program and for reaching out to our stations and sponsors and letting them know that you're listening. It really means a lot to us. A lot of people wonder, where did this whole right-wing movement to basically gut our freedoms and end DEI and all this other, where did this all begin? It all started back in 1951 with a book called The Conservative Mind, From Burke to Eliot by Russell Kirk. And he argued that if the middle class ever got too big, you'd see young people and women and racial minorities all get up on their hind feet and start protesting and basically screwing up America. And in the 50s, even Republicans thought he was nuts. But then the 60s happened and all those protests, and suddenly Republicans thought, yeah, he's right. We've got to destroy the middle class, or at least cut it back. And that was Reagan's mandate when he came into office in 1981. There's a whole article about this. You can read all the details. It's titled The GOP's 60-Year Conspiracy to Kill Our Democracy. None dare call it treason, but I will. Over at HartmannReport.com. Check it out.
There's thunder on the border, smoke in the sky. Leaders call it freedom, but the truth's gone dry. They're training the soldiers, they're loading the guns, saying it's for peace, but we know how that's done. From Kent State to right now, the lesson's the same. They fear the people more than the blame. Will the 2020 election even happen?
52 minutes past the hour. Welcome back. Picking up your calls here. Chip in Lawrence, Kansas. Hey, Chip, what's up?
Hey, Tom. First of all, I love Louise's music.
Oh, thank you.
My advice to everybody going to a rally, download a whole playlist on your phone and feed it into a big Bluetooth speaker.
Yeah, you can download them for free over at HartmannReport.com.
I know.
And we don't assert copyright on them. You can use them any way you want. You can post them anywhere you want. You don't even have to credit us.
I love that. Thank you very much. Hey, I got a question. With Trump going to reporters saying, you're terrible, saying all this stuff, and no other reporter speaks up.
Right. He's only trashing women reporters, to the best of my recollection.
Yes.
I don't recall the last time he went after a man.
Correct. Wouldn't it be fabulous if one of these guys would grow some cojones and actually have a Joe McCarthy moment and call him out like when they said to McCarthy, have you no decency, sir?
Yeah, at long last. Yeah, yeah.
At long last. Yeah. Could that be the final turning of the knife and just everybody say, yeah, I agree with him?
Yeah. No, I'm astonished by the timidity. Well, actually, I have two conflicting emotions about this. On the one hand, I'm astonished by the timidity of the colleagues of some of these women. And on the other hand, I'm astonished by the bravery of particularly this woman from ABC, I'm forgetting her name right now, who challenged him yesterday and has challenged him in the past. There are some extraordinary reporters who are asking these questions, but then he just goes off. And you'll recall, and this is something that Lawrence O'Donnell has gone off on over and over and over again, when Joe Biden was president, they'd talk back to him, they'd interrupt him, they'd talk over him. Now that Trump is president, none of that happens. It's like, you know, Big Daddy is speaking, we must all be quiet. And, you know, it's like they're all terrified. And, you know, I mean, yeah, he threw the Associated Press out. The AP is still not in the White House press corps because they refused to call the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America. And so, you know, I think they all realize that, you know, if they get sideways with Trump, they could lose their jobs. And that's just not a healthy thing. I mean, this is, but Trump is not a healthy man, and you know, psychologically, and this is not a healthy republic at the moment because he's the head of it. Chip, excellent point. Thank you very much. Gary in Syracuse, New York. Hey, Gary, what's up?
Hey, Tom. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
I was just thinking with your last segment regarding the Supreme Court. They must. I don't understand what they're doing, considering that everything that they put in place is going to be available to the next president, if that's going to be a Democrat. So this power that they're giving this bozo is just absolutely blows my mind.
Yeah, in 1935, in Humphrey's Executor, what the Supreme Court did was they took power away from Franklin Roosevelt. And now they're handing it to Trump. But I think you're right. If the next president is an FDR kind of figure, if it's a Democrat who's got a spine and is genuinely progressive and really tries to make a lot of change, the Supreme Court is going to make it a hell of a lot easier for him.
Right. And that's the reporter that challenged him the other day. That was Rachel Scott of ABC.
Thank you,
ABC.
Rachel Scott.
Her name was Rachel Scott. And it's funny because they won't speak back to this man because they'll lose access. Mm-hmm. And I guess the women should probably say to themselves, is this really that important for you to work in a hostile work environment, just have access to this bozo? Yeah. Sometimes you have to take a step back and just say to yourself, is this really worth my dignity of just being here and letting this guy insult me just so I can get
Well, what's so amazing is that her question was not offensive. I mean, you know, he said, I didn't say that. And instead of saying, yes, you did, she said, okay. And then she, you know, kind of went to the next question. I mean, she did not challenge him, but she's a woman and she's black, and both those things offend Donald Trump.
Right.
You know, if it's a personal
though, Tom, she did say, you did say that, but she kind of like, okay, whatever. You know, she's kind of like,
yeah, you're right.
You said it, but then she sort of jump back from there. And, you know, this whole thing and everything, you know, especially being African-American myself, this country, man, we got a long way to go.
We do.
2 steps forward and 8 steps backwards all the time.
Well, I think it's more like 2 steps forward and 1 step back. Although this does seem like 3 steps back, Gary, right now. I'll give you that.
I know.
I get it. Gary, it's nice hearing from you.
Yeah, he hasn't even been in for a year yet.
There you go. Happy holidays, Gary. Thanks for the call. We'll be back.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
In addition to bringing you the Thom Hartmann program here on Free Speech TV and Video Media Online, we also have a whole set of ways you can interact with us and tools you can use to spread the word about the importance of democracy and the threats to it in our republic. First, there's your daily homework. Sue Nethercutt puts together a daily email newsletter that has a link to every story I discuss on the air, so you can find my sources and you can share them with your friends. It's free and you can sign up at thomhartmann.com. Second, I publish my daily take every day over at the hartmannreport.com website. That's also free if you want the daily 5 days a week rant in your inbox. No ads either. Third, we have the podcasts. There's the free 1-hour version of our daily show that's advertising supported. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts normally. And then there's also the podcast of the entire 3-hour show with no advertisements, and that's available by subscription over at thomhartmann.com. So check them all out at thomhartmann.com and hartmannreport.com.
We say fight back!
You know, one of the things I keep coming back to is this simple truth. When hard times hit in America, historically, culturally, politically, it has never been the billionaires who show up for us. It's communities, it's neighbors, it's mutual aid networks, it's unions, it's people looking out for each other because the institutions that are supposed to protect us won't. And here we are again. We're watching the rise of authoritarianism in real time. We're watching a political movement openly planning to roll back rights, dismantle democratic norms, punish dissent, and silence independent voices, particularly in the media. Trump and the people around him are telling us exactly what they intend to do, from weaponizing government to controlling the media narrative. And what do the corporate networks do? They bow. They soften their language. They both sides fascism. They're terrified of losing access or offending advertisers. It's unregulated capitalism doing what unregulated capitalism always does, protecting power by suppressing truth. But Free Speech TV does not bow. We don't have shareholders. We don't have corporate masters. We have you. And as long as you show up, we stay free. We stay honest. We stay independent, even if the rest of the media ecosystem caves under the pressure. And speaking of showing up for one another, this season of giving, we're also doing something I love, connecting your generosity directly to grassroots mutual aid. When you give $60, you can choose to have a portion of your gift go to RAM Medical, an extraordinary nonprofit delivering free medical, dental, and vision care to folks in remote and underserved communities. That's real solidarity, real help. So your donation does two things at once. It keeps independent media alive and helps meet urgent needs on the ground. If you're ready to stand up, call 877-378-8669 or visit freespeech.org/donate.
But it is so grossly unconstitutional. All of you know that the only entity that can take this country to war is the U.S. Congress. The president does not have the right. You know, I was talking a moment ago about the fact that we are living in one of the most difficult moments in the modern history of this country, and Trump just made it that much more difficult. That's just another burden we're going to have to carry, and that's just another message we're going to have to get out all over this country. The American people do not want more war, more death. It might be a good idea if we concentrated on the problems that exist in Oklahoma and Vermont rather than getting involved and another war that the American people do not want. What the establishment wants you to believe is that you have no power, that you can't accomplish anything. They have it all, nothing you could do. And in this moment in American history, what we have got to do in Vermont, in Oklahoma, in Texas, all over this country, is stand up and fight back and tell them this is our country. And let me just say this. These are tough times, and you just heard 5 minutes ago, going to be even tougher. But in the midst of all of that, not just for our lives, but more importantly for our kids and our grandchildren, we have got to understand that despair is not an option. That's what they want us to believe. None of us have the privilege of hiding under the covers. The stakes are just too high. And I would like to remind all of you, a short history lesson, that throughout the history of this country, what we have always seen.
It hits hard because it's true. The danger isn't abstract anymore. It's not academic. Fascism doesn't always come goose-stepping in with the banners and the uniforms first. It arrives when people are too exhausted, too busy, or too hopeless to resist. It expands when media outlets become timid or compromised or bought out. It grows when truth gets pushed aside to make room for comfort and profit. But that is not what we do on Free Speech TV. We don't trade truth for access, we don't soften the edges to please a sponsor, and we don't pretend that authoritarianism is just another side of politics. We say what's real. We say what's dangerous. We say what needs to be said, even when the powerful would rather we stay silent. And that's why your donation matters right now, maybe more than it ever has. Because if independent media is going to survive a second Trump administration, if movement journalism is going to hold the line, it's going to be because grassroots supporters like you made that possible. This is mutual aid too. We support each other so we can keep telling the truth. And don't forget, a $50 donation this season can also directly support Ram Medical, extending your impact to people who need help today. That is the kind of solidarity that authoritarianism fears. Communities taking care of each other, refusing to abandon one another. So please, call 877-378-8669 or visit freespeech.org/donate. Be part of the resistance to silence, to fear, the resistance to corporate control.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Hey, welcome to the second hour of our program. Why are Republicans calling control over women a family value? I mean, this is just wild stuff. There's Michelle Goldberg wrote a great piece for the New York Times today, basically calling this out, pointing this out, and I want to credit her for that. Pointing out that the modern Republican Party is slipping into open, unapologetic misogyny. And Republican congresswomen are starting to say the quiet part out loud. I mean, I'm talking about Nancy Mace, and who also had a piece in the New York Times, or maybe it was the Washington Post. I believe it was yesterday. It might have been the day before. Basically saying that leadership doesn't want to hear from her, that it's an old boys club. I mean, they're really getting fed up with this. Michelle Goldberg, in her piece for the New York Times today, points out that Phyllis Schlafly started out, and Phyllis Schlafly, by the way, was a regular on this program. She'd been on this program, probably well over a dozen times over the years, and she and I would politely debate policy. She was a conservative, I'm a liberal. We debated health care, we debated gay rights, we debated gay marriage, we debated a whole bunch of things. But anyhow, Phyllis Schlafly used to claim that that misogyny was over, that women had equal rights, that the feminist movement of the 70s, the late 60s, early 70s, was successful. And one time she had a debate with a feminist, I forget who it was, and she ended up, who pointed out to her that had she tried to get, and she had at one point apparently tried to get a job in the Defense Department, and she didn't get it. A man got it, and she acknowledged that, yeah, it was because she was a woman, she didn't get the job. But we're seeing the same thing. In the Republican Party, ambitious women can rise throughout the ranks in the party, but they're expected to always defer to the men. There is no equivalent of Nancy Pelosi or Hillary Clinton in the Republican Party. And even women who have considerable power, I mean, like United States senators like Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins, are just routinely dissed by the men around them or ignored. The Republican women in the House are saying that Mike Johnson won't listen to them, won't engage with them, won't take them seriously. This was Nancy Mace's argument. They also they say that they drove efforts to hold a Republican the women drove efforts to hold a Republican colleague accountable for revenge porn threats. The men were fine with it, or not fine with it, but they didn't want to go down that road. The bigger story is that the conservative anti-woman movement is fashionable again. Misogyny is again fashionable in conservative and Republican circles. I mean, they claim to be outraged about anti-Semitism, right? Oh yeah, let's arrest a bunch of college students for saying things about Hamas or Israel or whatever and deport them. But misogyny, not a problem. Misogyny is a $6 word for hatred of women, basically. It is. You now have Republicans who are coming right out and saying, or Republican funders, billionaires who fund Republicans, coming right out and saying that the biggest mistake America made was letting women vote. That's when the Republic began to unravel. That's when the liberal stuff started happening, and that it's time to do away with the right of women to vote, the 19th Amendment. You also have conservative figures saying that workplace discrimination against women should be legal. You have Trump, basically embracing women. I don't mean physically, allowing women to work with him if, in a public role, if they are attractive. He wants pretty blondes. Pam Bondi's and Carolyn Levitt's. But, that's it. They have to be deferential. I mean, Carolyn Levitt yesterday was, from the White House press room, was just going off on how the Republicans aren't praising Trump enough. There's a great piece about it over on Raw Story right now. It's just crazy. The moment that women in Republican circles try to get real power, that's when the old boys club reminds them, that time to sit down and shut up, you little lady. That's, the essential message. And so, we can't allow this to be normalized. I mean, it's just wrong. Another story that, I think is really worth paying attention to here, and then I'll get to your calls, is what's going on in Ukraine right now. President Zelensky was in Europe over the weekend and Monday. And on Monday, he was asked about giving up territory. See, Putin had this peace proposal, which was basically Ukraine surrenders, Ukraine does away with their army, Ukraine gets rid of Zelensky, Ukraine will never again, will never join NATO. Ukraine will give to Russia not only the territory that Russia currently occupies, but a whole bunch of other territory that Russia wants. And Trump tried to present that to Ukraine, and they basically laughed at it. And so they went back and they kind of worked out a middle ground compromise. But again, Trump is asking for Russia to be able to keep the land that they have stolen. And I mean, Trump is just taking the Putin position here. And so Zelensky goes to Europe and says, help me. Trump has, not provided us with any aid in 11 months now. I guess 12 months, arguably. And, we can't, and Russia is stepping up the attacks. And Russia is now being supplied by China as well as North Korea and Iran with weaponry. And some really serious attacks. They attacked a pharmaceutical place just a couple of days ago. This was, got the story in here. Yeah, over the weekend, this is from the Washington Post, a Russian missile struck a major pharmaceutical distribution center near Kharkiv, destroying a facility that had supplied hospitals throughout besieged eastern Ukraine. Officials said it was Russia's 5th attack on a medical warehouse. So Zelensky goes and meets with these guys in Europe, and Trump is still complaining about this. He's still criticizing Zelensky. He says Kyiv is the obstacle. He accused Zelensky of slow-walking this plan, even though Moscow is refusing to budge at all. And so Zelensky met on Monday with British, French, and German leaders at 10 Downing Street, the Prime Minister's office. And then after that session, he flew to Brussels to consult with Mark Rutte, I'm not sure how to say it, the Secretary General of NATO, and Ursula von der Leyen, the European Commission President, the head of the EU's executive arm. And after the meeting, von der Leyen said Ukraine's sovereignty must be respected, Ukraine's security must be guaranteed in the long term as a first line of defense for our union. She's the head of the EU. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer said any deal must include hard-edged security guarantees for Ukraine. He said Europe must stand with Ukraine, strengthening its ability to defend against relentless attacks that have left thousands without heat or light. And French President Emmanuel Macron said work will be intensified to provide Ukraine with robust security guarantees and to plan measures for the reconstruction. Now, I'm not seeing anywhere in there, we're going to provide weaponry, we're going to provide soldiers, it looks like to me like Ukraine is still, to a certain extent, on their own, on the one hand. On the other hand, it seems that, solidarity with Ukraine is coalescing across European nations. And that, I think, is a good thing. But this argument, Trump said Zelensky has to give up Crimea, he has to give up the Donbass, he has to give up, all these territories that Russia has already occupied. This is Putin's position and Trump's position. Of course, Trump always takes Putin's position. In the last 10 years that Trump has been on the national stage here in the United States, ever since he jumped into the primaries in 2015, he has never, ever defied Vladimir Putin. He won't. He's terrified of Putin. Trump is Putin's bitch, or, well, that's the wrong word, and I shouldn't use that word. My apologies. Trump is Putin's, poodle? That's what they used to call Tony Blair relative to George W. Bush. So this is, and apologies if I offended anybody, but I just, this is infuriating, that the President of the United States will not stand with another democracy as an autocratic dictatorship attacks that democracy, a European democracy. But, it could be a democracy anywhere in my mind. That the President of the United States is taking the side of a murderous dictator. This is just fundamentally wrong. Why is Donald Trump so terrified of Vladimir Putin?
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
I'll pick up your calls right after this. Stay with us. And welcome back. Sharon in Denver, Colorado. Hey, Sharon, what's on your mind today?
Hi. Hey. I have a couple of things to say. I'm a black woman, and my father was a Pentecostal minister, which meant we went to church a lot. And my father, I found the church to be sexist and oppressive to women. And I told my father that. I quit going to church when I was 15. And no government is going to make me become a Christian. Okay, that's the first thing. Then the second thing is I was listening to your show. I can't remember if it was yesterday or the day before. I'm 71. I'm old. I saw someone had put a comment on there that they wanted to move to Africa, but they were told that the U.S. government would not send their Social Security to an African country. Do you know if that's true or?
I don't. I'm pretty sure that's not true. If you're a U.S. citizen and you're eligible for Social Security, you can get your check anywhere in the world.
Because I'm tired.
I get it.
I'm tired.
In fact, there have been a number of people who have moved to Ghana. I mean, that's a popular spot. African Americans who've decided to move. I've read several stories of that, who are retired. So yeah.
But I love your show, and I am used to listen to you all the time, and now I'm back to listening to you.
Well,
thank you for
Sharon.
your show.
Thank you. And I wish you the very happiest of the holidays.
You too.
Thank you, Sharon.
Bye-bye.
Bye now. Tom in Media, Pennsylvania. Hey, Tom, what's on your mind today?
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about health care, because I think there's going to be a big issue in 28, looking at the big picture. And last week, Congressman Pocan actually, defined it as what it meant for the Democrat progressives. 110 House representatives and 17 senators have signed off on these Medicare for All bills. They're identical, but the House bill is 3069. This is what they mean by Medicare for All. And, it's very deceptively named. It's everything, which includes prescriptions, all drug benefits, reproductive, fertility, everything.
It goes way beyond Medicare, in other words.
Yes, absolutely. And it would mean the elimination of private health care with nothing in that bill saying that I would be compensated for what I have sacrificed for and my union brethren have sacrificed for decades. I'm saying the bill has to change or it's going to hurt them, and it's got to change significantly. It would also cover 12 to 14 million illegal immigrants, how many are going to be left. And that I think is very unpopular. So I just want to ask you, Tom, have you read that bill?
No, not word for word, Tom. Have you?
Yeah, I really would suggest that you look at that, Tom, and then you would see why I, as a middle-class person that has health insurance that I like, that gives me access and convenience and is fairly affordable.
What's the number? HR?
It's HR 3069.
3069. Okay. I'll educate myself, Tom.
Look at it, and in a couple of weeks I'll talk to you about it, because I think you'll see why it has to change, and that this is actually the bill that the Democrats are pushing. So have a good week, Tom.
Sounds like a plan. Tom, thanks a lot for the call. It's 21 minutes past the hour. I'll be back with more of your calls in just a moment. Actually, about 60 seconds, 75, something like that. We'll be right back. Missed my opening rant today? It's usually published over at HartmannReport.com, where you can read it and share it with your friends for free. Check it out, HartmannReport.com. Corporate raiders, when they acquire a company, basically strip it down. They take everything of value out of it, put it in their own pockets, leave just a husk of a company. I watched, Bain Capital do this with Clear Channel. In fact, they just ran it into bankruptcy. And they run off with all the cash. Well, that's what Donald Trump is doing to America right now. He's basically behaving like a corporate raider, taking, all the assets of this company and handing as many of them as possible off to billionaires and shutting down programs that benefit average working class people. This is, an all billionaire cabinet, or largely billionaire cabinet, with a billionaire president and they're dancing to the tune of the billionaires. It shouldn't surprise us, I suppose, but there's a whole article about it over at my Daily Take entitled Trump's Hostile Takeover of America, the Corporate Raiders' Final Heist, over at HartmannReport.com. Check it out.
They say we're free, they say we're strong, but we can't heal what's gone so wrong. A mother cries her child can't pay for the pills that keep the pain away. We've built our dreams on borrowed time, turned mercy into dollar signs. This is the promise that could heal a broken nation, a vow of care, not corporation, health care for all, not just a few. The soul of a country depends on what we do.
24 minutes past the hour. Welcome back. So what's on your mind today? And happy holidays to everybody. Frank in Laguna Hills, California. Hey, Frank, thanks for listening to KPFK. What's up?
Hey, Tom. You know, the last time I spoke to you, I had just taken a bite of my lunch and you answered the phone, and it happened again today.
It's the old waiter trick.
So go figure. Anyway, what I want to talk about is people that claim that they are sovereign citizens, and when they get pulled over by a law enforcement officer, they don't produce their license, registration, or insurance because they say they don't have to because they're a sovereign citizen.
Right.
I'm not sure where they get that, and I'm pretty sure that's not right. I was a truck driver for a lot of years. I got 1 million miles on me, and so I know a little, but not everything. So what's your take on that, Tom?
The sovereign citizen movement came out of basically a kind of a conspiracy theory. There's a bunch of conspiracy theories that are associated with it, and I'm probably not doing it justice. I'm not a scholar of that particular movement, although I've had people on the program. It's been a few years, but who subscribe to it. And part of it is this weird thing that America is not actually a country, we're actually a corporation, that the Constitution are articles of incorporation, essentially, and that if your birth certificate is in all capital letters, that you are, if your name on your birth certificate is in all capital letters, then you either are or are not part of that corporation, or a senior officer of the corporation or a shareholder. I forget the details, but something about that. And it's all kind of wacky stuff. But there's some people who seriously believe it, and they tend to defend themselves with guns. So, which is another thing that they think is associated with their sovereignty. Right. But yeah, I think it's a movement that's dying out. Frankly, I think it's been pretty discredited over the years.
Okay. All right. Well, that answers that. Thanks, Tom.
Okay. Yeah. Good talking to you, Frank. I appreciate the call.
All right, but next time I call, I won't be eating.
Okay. and happy holidays to you, Frank. I hope you have plans for the holidays.
Yeah, I celebrate Hanukkah. So.
Oh, sweet. So when is Hanukkah this year?
It's coming up pretty soon. I'm off. I don't know.
I've lost track. Check. Yeah, I've got to check a calendar. Well, happy Hanukkah, Frank. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for the call.
Okay,
good hearing from you. It's 27 minutes past the hour. I'll be back with more of your calls in just a minute. Stay with us. It's the Thom Hartmann program, defending America from the weapons of mass deception.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann program. Call 202-808-9925.
Hanukkah apparently starts at sundown on the 14th, just FYI. We'll be right back. You know, one of the things I keep coming back to is this simple truth. When hard times hit in America, historically, culturally, politically, it has never been the billionaires who show up for us. It's communities, it's neighbors, it's mutual aid networks, it's unions, it's people looking out for each other because the institutions that are supposed to protect us won't. And here we are again. We're watching the rise of authoritarianism in real time. We're watching a political movement openly planning to roll back rights, dismantle democratic norms, punish dissent, and silence independent voices, particularly in the media. Trump and the people around him are telling us exactly what they intend to do, from weaponizing government to controlling the media narrative. And what do the corporate networks do? They bow. They soften their language. They both sides fascism. They're terrified of losing access or offending advertisers. It's unregulated capitalism doing what unregulated capitalism always does, protecting power by suppressing truth. But Free Speech TV does not bow. We don't have shareholders. We don't have corporate masters. We have you. And as long as you show up, we stay free. We stay honest. We stay independent, even if the rest of the media ecosystem caves under the pressure. And speaking of showing up for one another, this season of giving, we're also doing something I love, connecting your generosity directly to grassroots mutual aid. When you give $60, you can choose to have a portion of your gift go to RAM Medical, an extraordinary nonprofit delivering free medical, dental, and vision care to folks in remote and underserved communities. That's real solidarity, real help. So your donation does two things at once. It keeps independent media alive and helps meet urgent needs on the ground. If you're ready to stand up, call 877-378-8669 or visit freespeech.org/donate.
But it is so grossly unconstitutional. All of you know that the only entity that can take this country to war is the U.S. Congress. The president does not have the right. You know, I was talking a moment ago about the fact that we are living in one of the most difficult moments in the modern history of this country, and Trump just made it that much more difficult. That's just another burden we're going to have to carry, and that's just another message we're going to have to get out all over this country. The American people do not want more war, more death. It might be a good idea if we concentrated on the problems that exist in Oklahoma and Vermont rather than getting involved in another war that the American people do not want. What the establishment wants you to believe is that you have no power, that you can't accomplish anything. They have it all, nothing you could do. And in this moment in American history, what we have got to do in Vermont and Oklahoma, in Texas, all over this country, is stand up and fight back and tell them this is our country. And let me just say this. These are tough times, and you just heard 5 minutes ago, going to be even tougher. But in the midst of all of that, not just for our lives, but more importantly for our kids and our grandchildren, we have got to understand that despair is not an option. That's what they want us to believe. None of us have the privilege of hiding under the covers. The stakes are just too high. And I would like to remind all of you, a short history lesson, that throughout the history of this country, what we have always seen.
It hits hard because it's true. The danger isn't abstract anymore. It's not academic. Fascism doesn't always come goose-stepping in with the banners and the uniforms first. It arrives when people are too exhausted, too busy, or too hopeless to resist. It expands when media outlets become timid or compromised or bought out. It grows when truth gets pushed aside to make room for comfort and profit. But that is not what we do on Free Speech TV. We don't trade truth for access. We don't soften the edges to please a sponsor. And we don't pretend that authoritarianism is just another side of politics. We say what's real. We say what's dangerous. We say what needs to be said, even when the powerful would rather we stay silent. And that's why your donation matters right now, maybe more than it ever has. Because if independent media is going to survive a second Trump administration, if movement journalism is going to hold the line, it's going to be because grassroots supporters like you made that possible. This is mutual aid too. We support each other so we can keep telling the truth. And don't forget, a $50 donation this season can also directly support RAM Medical, extending your impact to people who need help today. That is the kind of solidarity that authoritarianism fears. Communities taking care of each other, refusing to abandon one another. So please, call 877-378-8669 or visit freespeech.org/donate. Be part of the resistance to silence, to fear, the resistance to corporate control. Share the Thom Hartmann program with your friends. Our podcast, The Hartmann Report, is absolutely free and available wherever fine podcasts are available. And the entire 3-hour podcast is available over at thomhartmann.com. Donald Trump lost, voter suppression won in 2024. That's the headline over at hartmannreport.com. And just a brilliant article written by Greg Palast, exclusively for the Hartmann Report. He writes, Trump lost. That is, if all legal voters were allowed to vote, if all legal ballots were counted, Trump would have lost the states of Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Georgia. Vice President Kamala Harris would have won the presidency with 286 electoral votes. And if not for the mass purge of voters of color, if not for the mass disqualification of provisional and mail-in ballots, if not for the new mass vigilante challenges in swing states, Harris would have gained at least another 3.5 million votes, topping Trump's popular vote tally by 1.2 million. Greg brings us the numbers. He lays it out. You can read it over at hartmannreport.com, absolutely free. It's titled Trump Lost, Vote Suppression Won at hartmannreport.com. Check it out.
Santa gathered all the elves and said, now listen here to me. We've got toy shop injuries from here to Christmas Eve. From candy cane, carpal tunnel to sleigh live lower backs. We need a healthcare plan that keeps this workshop on its tracks. So we're rolling out healthcare for every girl and boy, from the nutcracker technicians to the builders of each toy. No deductibles or co-pays, just cocoa when you're down. Healthcare for all at the North Pole, the strongest plan around. And Elf stepped up with glasses skewed, said, boss, I've got a sprain. I slipped upon a peppermint and tumbled off the train. Santa said, you're covered now, no need to fear the cost. We'll patch you up with snowman ice and never leave you lost. So we're rolling out elf care.
Welcome back, 36 minutes past the elf care. It's amazing. You know, Bill Cassidy, who is the senator from, Wyoming, I think? Someplace out there, you know, one of the western states. Excuse me. Bill Cassidy is a physician. And he is starting to echo this Republican line that Americans need to have, quote, skin in the game. In other words, you have to pay part of your health care expenses, and that will cause you to shop around for cheaper health care. As if, you know, such a thing was even really practical. Oh, I'm having a heart attack. Which hospital is cheapest? Let's call them all and ask. Yeah, I mean, it's just nuts. And now Trump is reviving this idea of health savings accounts, HSAs, and high deductible policies. So you get a health savings account where, you know, every month you get to take $100 out of your paycheck and put it into your health savings account, to cover the high deductibles. And then you get a policy that has like a $5,000 deductible on it, where, you know, you're going to be out of pocket $5,000, $10,000. Some of them are, you know, $20,000 deductibles. And so you get one of these sleazy policies, And it's just a prescription for bankruptcy. Now, not to mention the fact that the HSAs actually reduce the amount in your paycheck every month because it has to go out of your paycheck and go to the health savings account. I get it that it's, quote, tax deductible, but so what? I mean, it's all going to end up in the pockets of, you know, Rick Scott and one of his hospitals or something. So, you know, Trump is trying to convince us that Democratic efforts, you know, to revive the subsidies for Obamacare, to keep the costs down, and to expand coverage, or any other program that the Democrats are advocating that would tend to universalize health care in the United States is a bad thing, and that the solution is health savings accounts and these pathetic, you know, low-cost, low-coverage policies that in many cases Trump has even suggested, or at least the people around him have suggested, bringing back pre-existing conditions, where if you get sick and you submit your claim to the insurance company, they go back and look through, you know, 20, 30, 40 years of your health records to discover that, oh, hey, wait a minute, you smoked 20 years ago. We're not going to cover your lung cancer diagnosis, or we're not going to cover your COPD or whatever it may be. I mean, it's just, this is, I don't think the Republicans are going to get away with it this time. They've been pulling this BS since Reagan, basically. I mean, Richard Nixon actually talked about a national health care program. He never really seriously proposed one, but he wasn't opposed to it, to the best of my recollection. The Reagan Revolution was when, you know, it really became a thing among Republicans to say, no, people need skin in the game. They need to pay part of the cost. They need to be responsible. We need to teach people responsibility. It's horse crap. So anyhow, what's on your mind? Robin in Iowa City, Iowa. Hey, Robin, what's up?
Hi, I'm glad I finally got to get to speak with you. I'm a first-time caller.
Well, thank you, Robin.
I've been listening to you whenever I can. I usually am at work, so there's so many things I could talk about because there's a few things going on. And I do listen to the news and follow politics quite closely. But one thing that I wanted to bring up, and I haven't heard this from any other talk shows, is about the boat strikes in the Caribbean, you know, against the Venezuelans, the Colombians.
Yeah.
And the thing that occurred to me was that if this were an American boat, if some other foreign intelligence decided that this American boat was trafficking narcotics and just decided to summarily execute everybody on board, they would be such a total... I shouldn't say the word, but...
Yeah, if it's obscene, please don't. But I get what you're saying.
Imagine the reaction in this country.
Yeah.
But for some reason that they believe that people that are on these boats were, you know, criminals because we were told that.
Yeah. Let me tell you what's really going on here, Robin. In addition to the bloodlust, just the raw, naked bloodlust that Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth share, you know, the love of watching people die. These guys are you know, clinical psychopaths. But in addition to that, you'll recall back in the early 2000s, it was revealed that in 1999, Mickey Herskowitz had an interview, had done about 100 hours of interviews, or some mind-boggling number of hours. Maybe it wasn't that many, but a number of hours of interviews with George W. Bush in order to write the first draft of George Bush's autobiography. He was the ghostwriter. George W. Bush's autobiography was called A Charge to Keep. And, you know, it was about his noble time in the military. And one of the things that Bush said to Herskowitz was that his father had tried to do what Reagan did. You know, Reagan had his little war with Grenada, and it helped him get reelected in 1984. And so George Herbert Walker Bush thought having a little war, just a 3-day war with Kuwait and Iraq, really over Kuwait, would help him get elected. But George W. Bush points out to Herskowitz that because his father's war did not last right up until the election, it didn't have the effect that it should have had of getting him reelected, because we have always, throughout our history, we have always reelected presidents during wartime. And so what George W. Bush told Herskowitz, his biographer, was that if he got elected, he was going to have a war with Iraq, and he was going to make sure that it lasted through the 2004 election, so he'd get reelected and he'd have a successful presidency and get everything done that he wanted to get done. So in my mind, what I think is going on is that Donald Trump is thinking, and the people around him are thinking, that the way to help Republicans hold on to the House in 2026, I don't think that there's so much thinking about 2028 right now. I think Trump is genuinely hysterical about losing the House in 2026, because if the House goes to the Democrats, they will begin investigating his corruption. They will begin investigating his bribes. They'll begin investigating his taking money, literally billions of dollars, for his family in exchange for pardons. His pardoning, drug traffickers, crypto scammers, the whole bit. He will be revealed to the world, and to, more importantly, to Americans, as being one of the most notorious criminals in history. Not just to sit in the White House, but just in general. And so I think that he thinks that if he can get America in a war with Venezuela, and he can get Fox News and the right-wing machine to back him up on this, and we can have this war with Venezuela just in time for the 2026 elections, which means that probably they will start the war next spring or maybe next summer, that will give him the wartime president not just the power that comes with being a wartime president, which would make it a lot easier for him to for example, to impose or to invoke the Insurrection Act. I mean, this is what Woodrow Wilson did, who was a Democrat, but nonetheless a terrible president. What he did with World War I. He threw a bunch of people in prison for speaking out against World War I. He basically suspended the First Amendment because we're at war, don't you know? And so I think that this is all about creating war with Venezuela, and we're all focusing on the fact that these are murders or war crimes if we were at war, but we're not at war, so these are just simple murders, and that's worth focusing on, and that's important. And you've got some members of the Senate who are not, they're like a dog or the bone right now on this thing. They're not going to let go of it. But I think the bigger issue that nobody wants to talk about is that what Trump really wants to do is he wants to have a war with Venezuela. So that
our so-called peace president.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, well, if you can't get the peace, I don't think I think this is more important to him than the peace prize, is preventing the Democrats from taking the House. Robin, I got to run. Thanks for the call.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archive.
Back with more of your calls in just a minute. Stay with us. And welcome back. And let's see here who's been on hold the longest. It looks like it's Steve in Phoenix. Hey, Steve, thanks for waiting. What's up?
Hey, Tom. I think he's trying to wag that doggy so darn hard.
Yeah,
the old
exactly.
Humane Society to be called on him.
Yep. Yeah, well, and I think it's important that people remember that whole wag the dog meme was a Republican meme criticizing Bill Clinton for intervening in the Kosovo Bosnian war, which I supported. The war atrocities that Slobodan Milosevic and Radovan Karadzic were committing were just way over the top. We actually did our show from Croatia, from Dubrovnik, after the war. Bullet holes everywhere. And the guy who ran the radio station there, who gave us a studio, his wife was murdered and his daughter was raped by these guys. I mean, he just broke down on the air telling us the story. But anyhow, they said that Clinton was just doing it because he wanted to get himself reelected, which was just BS.
Oh, Jesus. I tell you, without a doubt, the Republicans are they're caused all the misery dating back to over 100+ years of our history. And our stupid Americans, and we are stupid, make no mistake, we keep, not me, not you, but so many of them, women, Hispanics, African Americans, especially this last election, fell into the trap and voted for Trump.
Yep.
And it just blew my mind how we could be so ignorant. And you look at these sporting events. I wish our people paid more attention to politics and what was really going on. If they paid half as much attention to that they do getting all riled up over their sports teams, their college football, professional football, basketball, and I love sports. I love sports dearly. But I can pay attention to both, but our people can't. And it is costing us. What I really called about, Tom, was this gentleman who was a union member, and I'm a honorary withdrawal from the aerospace workers. You know, I can't remember the title right now. I'm a little tired. I had knee surgery last week. And so I was that, and also I worked in offices, corporate offices, you know, during my tenure and stuff. So I've seen both sides. Anyways, this union guy is a little short-sighted and selfish and myopic, in my opinion. Union people generally get better wages, better vacations, better retirement plans, everything. So if he has to give up a little bit of what supposedly he sacrificed for the greater good of all humanity and Americans everywhere, well, so be it. You know,
this is the guy who told us that he voted for Trump because he wanted the tax cut.
Did he say that? I didn't.
Yeah,
I
it's
didn't
the same guy, Tom from Media. Yeah. I mean, you know, he's a Democrat, and I think, you know, most issues he's probably aligned with you and me, Steve. But on this one issue of his own personal interests, he's pretty myopic, in my opinion.
Oh, without a doubt. And
I am going to look up the bill. I do think that it would be a mistake if the bill outlaws private insurance. I would be surprised if it does, but I will look it up. You know, I think a system like in Canada, or in most of the European countries, where, you know, you've got a basic national health care system that covers most everything. And then, you know, if you want to have, you know, you want to pay extra and get like air ambulances, you know, or a suite in the hospital, you can buy your own, you know, insurance for that. So.
Agreed. Thanks, Tom.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Steve. Happy holidays to you. Appreciate the call. It's 10 minutes before the hour. I'll be back with you in just a minute. Stay with us. Hey, thanks so much for sharing our program and for reaching out to our stations and sponsors and letting them know that you're listening. It really means a lot to us. So MAGA Mike and the Republicans want a religious test for people running for public office. They want to know that you are sufficiently Christian to be worthy of being elected. Right. MAGA Mike is one of these 7 mountain evangelicals. There are 7 domains where these dominionists believe that we need to have religion completely take them over. Education, religion, family, business, government, military, arts and entertainment, and the media. Seriously. This is not what Jesus was preaching when he said, give unto Caesar what is Caesar and unto God what is God's. This is the opposite, in fact, of what Jesus was teaching. It's the opposite of Matthew 25, where Jesus said the only way to get to heaven is by feeding the hungry, healing the sick, helping the poor. This is counter-Christian, anti-Christian, in fact. In fact, I think you could say it is the Antichrist's work. There's a piece about it over at HartmannReport.com. Check it out. Welcome back. 9 minutes before the hour. Picking up your calls here. Bob in Melbourne, Florida. Hey, Bob, what's up?
Another day in paradise, Tom. Just another day in paradise.
I'm jealous of your weather. We're getting an atmospheric river here. It has been raining like crazy for 3 days, and it's going to rain like crazy for the next 4 or 5 days. And get ready in the mountain states and the Midwest, because this thing is coming your way. But it's not going to hit you down there in Melbourne, Florida, I don't think.
No, there it is. See, my son lives in Chicago, and I told him my advice is never live anywhere where the outside of your house is colder than the inside of your refrigerator. So
there you go.
My wife is a financial analyst for a company that does aerospace and defense contracting. And there's something that's flying way under the radar for everybody. One of the effects of Elon Musk and the Doge thing is that the emphasis on purchasing for all of these companies has shifted, or for the government has shifted from research and development for specific products that do specific things, say in guidance systems or whatever it is, armaments, anything in aerospace, you name it, is shifting from R&D work. In other words, the government comes up with a specific amount of things that criteria, and then people bid on it, and they go to work, and they do the R&D, and they do all this stuff.
Right.
No, we're not going to do that anymore. What we're going to do is we're going to buy off-the-shelf product and then modify it to perform whatever it is that we want it to do.
Oh, that's weird.
Okay.
Because they've got, they're building drone swarms now in China.
All on and on and on. Well, what that does is, A, it shuts down our R&D work.
Right.
Number two, it shifts who's got the product off the shelf. Big, huge corporations have stuff off the shelf, right? Now, my analogy is, so what we're doing is we're taking all of the little guys out of the equation, and we're shifting that total emphasis in purchasing to, like I said, the product that already exists. Well, this is going to reduce the quality of all the stuff that we buy, number one. Number two, but it shifts all that to the huge corporations that have off-the-shelf product. My analogy for that is all of the R&D work and everything else and all the contractors that have input into, say, making MREs, right? All of a sudden, no, that's okay. We'll just buy Campbell's soup.
Right, MREs being meals ready to eat, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So we'll just buy stuff off the shelf. We'll just buy Campbell's soup.
Yeah, I think even more important, though, was the point I was trying to make, which is that, and there was a good piece about this I think in The Economist this week, that warfare has changed. And this is one of the things that we're learning from the experience in Ukraine, is that drones and now this very sophisticated drone swarms that the Chinese have developed, where they'll throw 5,000 drones into the air, every single one of them a potential bomb or carrying guns, and they'll come in formation. I mean, just like something out of a science fiction movie. And and we're still building tanks and aircraft carriers, which are just sitting ducks for these things.
So rather than develop products that compete with their product, we'll just take, say, a guidance system from this, and we'll put it on that and see if it works. Maybe. Okay. And like I said, it not just affects things in the defense and aerospace. It affects everything that the government is buying.
Is this a new Trump position, or is this something Congress did?
This is something that came out of Elon Musk and the Doge crap.
Oh,
okay?
Interesting.
And oh yes, and it is going to.
And Musk is a defense contractor.
Oh well, and I bet you he's got an inside notion as to what is going to be needed, and I bet you he's going to have some stuff that's going to be ready and off the shelf, don't you?
Like Starlink. Yeah.
Like you name it, and that is going to wow.
Yeah. Now
down here in Melbourne, I mean, hell, all of my neighbors are either retired or work for an engineering company. That's all that there is down here. I mean, engineering companies are like 7-Elevens. They're all over the place, and everybody is going like, whoa, wait a minute.
Oh, really?
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Except for the big boys.
Yeah.
The big boys aren't worried about it at all.
Yeah, because they've got the stuff. They've got a warehouse full of stuff they want to shovel out the door. Yeah,
exactly.
Actually, I think it was either the Washington Post or the New York Times ran an editorial about this over the last 1 or 2 or maybe 3 days, that the United States is.
I'll go back and look.
Yeah, is slipping behind in our ability to wage war. And, which is becoming more and more consequential with the threats coming out of, China and Russia.
Don't you think?
Yeah, there you go. Bob, I got to run, but happy holidays and thanks a lot for the call. Great to hear from you. We're hitting the top of the hour. On the other side of the break, Ron Wyden wants to point out, I'll tell you about it. He's not on as a guest, but he wants to point out the fallacy of Trump's bailout of farmers.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
In addition to bringing you the Thom Hartmann program here on Free Speech TV and Video Media Online, we also have a whole set of ways you can interact with us and tools you can use to spread the word about the importance of democracy and the threats to it in our republic. First, there's your daily homework. Sue Nethercutt puts together a daily email newsletter that has a link to every story I discuss on the air, so you can find my sources and you can share them with your friends. It's free and you can sign up at thomhartmann.com. Second, I publish my daily take every day over at the hartmannreport.com website. That's also free if you want the daily 5 days a week rant in your inbox. No ads either. Third, we have the podcasts. There's the free 1-hour version of our daily show that's advertising supported. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts normally. And then there's also the podcast of the entire 3-hour show with no advertisements, and that's available by subscription over at thomhartmann.com. So check them all out at thomhartmann.com and hartmannreport.com.
We say fight back!
You know, one of the things I keep coming back to is this simple truth. When hard times hit in America, historically, culturally, politically, it has never been the billionaires who show up for us. It's communities, it's neighbors, it's mutual aid networks, it's unions, it's people looking out for each other because the institutions that are supposed to protect us won't. And here we are again. We're watching the rise of authoritarianism in real time. We're watching a political movement openly planning to roll back rights, dismantle democratic norms, punish dissent, and silence independent voices, particularly in the media. Trump and the people around him are telling us exactly what they intend to do, from weaponizing government to controlling the media narrative. And what do the corporate networks do? They bow. They soften their language. They both sides fascism. They're terrified of losing access or offending advertisers. It's unregulated capitalism doing what unregulated capitalism always does, protecting power by suppressing truth. But Free Speech TV does not bow. We don't have shareholders. We don't have corporate masters. We have you. And as long as you show up, we stay free. We stay honest. We stay independent, even if the rest of the media ecosystem caves under the pressure. And speaking of showing up for one another, this season of giving, we're also doing something I love, connecting your generosity directly to grassroots mutual aid. When you give $60, you can choose to have a portion of your gift go to RAM Medical, an extraordinary nonprofit delivering free medical, dental, and vision care to folks in remote and underserved communities. That's real solidarity, real help. So your donation does two things at once. It keeps independent media alive and helps meet urgent needs on the ground. If you're ready to stand up, call 877-378-8669 or visit freespeech.org/donate.
But it is so grossly unconstitutional. All of you know that the only entity that can take this country to war is the U.S. Congress. The president does not have the right. You know, I was talking a moment ago about the fact that we are living in one of the most difficult moments in the modern history of this country, and Trump just made it that much more difficult. That's just another burden we're going to have to carry, and that's just another message we're going to have to get out all over this country. The American people do not want more war, more death. It might be a good idea if we concentrated on the problems that exist in Oklahoma and Vermont rather than getting involved and another war that the American people do not want. What the establishment wants you to believe is that you have no power, that you can't accomplish anything. They have it all, nothing you could do. And in this moment in American history, what we have got to do in Vermont, in Oklahoma, in Texas, all over this country, is stand up and fight back and tell them this is our country. And let me just say this. These are tough times, and you just heard 5 minutes ago, going to be even tougher. But in the midst of all of that, not just for our lives, but more importantly for our kids and our grandchildren, we have got to understand that despair is not an option. That's what they want us to believe. None of us have the privilege of hiding under the covers. The stakes are just too high. And I would like to remind all of you, a short history lesson, that throughout the history of this country, what we have always seen.
It hits hard because it's true. The danger isn't abstract anymore. It's not academic. Fascism doesn't always come goose-stepping in with the banners and the uniforms first. It arrives when people are too exhausted, too busy, or too hopeless to resist. It expands when media outlets become timid or compromised or bought out. It grows when truth gets pushed aside to make room for comfort and profit. But that is not what we do on Free Speech TV. We don't trade truth for access. We don't soften the edges to please a sponsor. And we don't pretend that authoritarianism is just another side of politics. We say what's real. We say what's dangerous. We say what needs to be said, even when the powerful would rather we stay silent. And that's why your donation matters right now, maybe more than it ever has. Because if independent media is going to survive a second Trump administration, if movement journalism is going to hold the line, it's going to be because grassroots supporters like you made that possible. This is mutual aid too. We support each other so we can keep telling the truth. And don't forget, a $50 donation this season can also directly support Ram Medical, extending your impact to people who need help today. That is the kind of solidarity that authoritarianism fears. Communities taking care of each other, refusing to abandon one another. So please, call 877-378-8669 or visit freespeech.org/donate. Be part of the resistance to silence, to fear, the resistance to corporate control.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Hey, welcome to the third hour of our program. Ron Wyden has just come right out and said it out loud. Ron Wyden is one of my two senators, along with Jeff Merkley. And he has this uncomfortable habit, and I say uncomfortable as if, well, in the context of uncomfortable to the Trump administration. You know, it's like the little boy who said the emperor has no clothes, you know, that kind of uncomfortable. He has the uncomfortable habit of pointing out uncomfortable truths about Trump. And Trump yesterday met with some farmers, and he's, of course, underwater with farmers. He's got people across the Midwest just hating him right now because his bizarre tariff policy, which seems mostly designed to intimidate countries into bringing his son in, one of his sons in as business partners, or building Trump hotels or resorts. I mean, Trump has made billions of dollars since he became president, and some of it you can track right back to countries, trying to get out from underneath tariffs. And in fact, in Switzerland, the Swiss government is now investigating this as attempted bribery. You had the head of one of the Swiss luxury good companies, and the head of, was it Rolex? I don't think so. It might have been. It was one of the Swiss watch manufacturers. And what was the other one? I'd have to look it up. But anyway, I believe there were three of them. Three different companies came from Switzerland. They came over to the White House and gave Trump a gold bar, weighed like a kilo of gold that was engraved. And they gave him a clock. This was from the Swiss clock company that, had gold all over it and was engraved for him. They gave him these gifts that were worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. In exchange for that, they wanted him to lower the tariffs on Swiss goods, or on these particular Swiss goods, from what they were, as I recall, it was like 25 or 35%, down to 15%. And he did it. He lowered the tariffs. So, Trump is entirely transactional here, and he's been using these tariffs as ways to bully other countries into giving him and his family more money or more gifts or more recognition. And now, it's hurting our farmers. I mean, China said, screw you guys, we're not going to buy your soybeans, which has cost American farmers, an estimated $15 billion. You got farmers going bankrupt right now. We're back to Live Aid, Farm Aid, Willie Nelson raising money for farmers so they can save their farms. And the farmers are seriously pissed off about it, particularly the smaller ones. But a lot of the large ones, too, and some of them are major Republican donors. So Trump gets a bunch of them together, this week, or maybe it was the tail end of last week, and says, okay, we're gonna give you guys $12 billion. Just shut up and go away. Be happy. And he did this in his first term, by the way. Same thing, right? Remember that? Not quite for the same reasons, but close. And so here's what Ron Wyden said, my senator from Oregon. He said, instead of proposing government handouts, Donald Trump should end his destructive tariff spree so American farmers can compete and win on a level playing field. Donald Trump's trade war is taxing families, killing markets for our farm goods, and driving farmers into bankruptcy. And we have farmers here in Oregon. I mean, we're an agricultural state also, although probably our major agricultural product is wood. But we do have, particularly in the central and southern part of the state, a lot of farms, large farms. He goes on to say, Ron Wyden goes on to say that Trump's plan to bail out farmers won't even get agriculture communities back to even. He said they're still paying more for fertilizer, equipment, and seeds, while grown in the USA farm goods are facing more obstacles than ever in foreign markets. And don't forget that all this trade destruction and taxing was to raise money for Trump's massive handouts to billionaires and the ultra-wealthy. And that's true. I mean, Trump is bragging about all the money that his tariffs are raising, tariffs that are paid for by American taxpayers, by the way. We pay tariffs. No other country has paid a penny in tariffs to Donald Trump or to the White House or to the United States government or anything. I mean, they're giving gifts to Donald Trump to get rid of them, but they don't pay the tariffs. We pay the tariffs, but it's our companies, our importers. But the consequence of the tariff incited trade wars, like, with China, like I said, China said, okay, screw you, we're not going to buy soybeans from you anymore. We're going to buy them from Brazil. And then Trump gives 15 or $20 billion to Argentina to try to help his friend Milei get reelected, which worked, by the way. And what does Milei do? He takes that money and he gives it to the Argentinian soybean farmers and says, because, they had tariffs on their soybeans too, and says, here, this will cover your tariffs so you can sell your soybeans to China for cheap. So China stops buying them from Brazil and starts buying them from Argentina. Because Milei is using the money, your and my tax dollars, that Trump gave him to subsidize his soybean farmers to compete with ours. Another story that you will never hear if you watch Fox News. But anyhow, Farm Action, this farmer-led agricultural watchdog group, says that they welcome the relief package, but it's not enough to quote, end the suffering caused by tariffs, soaring input costs, and years of volatile markets. Gee, you think? I mean, this is amazing stuff. Just amazing. Meanwhile, this is incredible. Don't tell Bob Kennedy about this. I've got a little more Bob Kennedy after this. But don't tell Bob because he'll try to screw this up. But a dementia vaccine may well not only exist, But if you're over 50, you might have already gotten it. It's the shingles vaccine, and maybe you've got to be over 60. I don't know what the cutoff age is. It might even be 65. But there's a vaccine for shingles. Shingles is this awful disease. I have a friend in Germany who has shingles, and she has it on her face, and she can't sleep. You get these blisters that run along the nerves. It's the herpes zoster virus. It's the virus that causes, or not zoster, it's one of the herpes viruses that causes chickenpox. It's the chickenpox virus. And when it affects the nerves, and when it infects the nerves, it causes them basically these nerve pathways under the skin to erupt, and you get these blisters that are just insanely painful because it's a nerve. And it can last months, the outbreaks, and then they go away for a little while, and then they come back again, and every time your immune system gets depressed a little bit, the outbreak gets worse, comes back or gets worse. And there's a vaccine for it. I believe you have to take 2 shots, the shingles vaccine. I've done it, and it's one that really hits you hard. It's not terrible, but I got the flu vaccine and I get my COVID vaccine, and I just don't even notice it other than a sore arm. I got the shingles vaccine and I felt like I had the flu for a day or two. Not a big deal, but it's compared to most vaccines, it's a little harsher. But now it turns out they did this study of 280,000 adults in Wales between the ages of 71 and 88 years old. Now, they're able to do this, of course, because they have a national health care system, so they consolidated all their data. And what they found was that the people between 71 and 88 who had received the shingles vaccine had a 20% lower chance of developing dementia, of even beginning to get dementia. 20% lower chance, 1 in 5 lower chance. 1 out of 5 people who would have gotten dementia didn't get it because they had the shingles vaccine. And then they did a follow-up study. That was published in Nature. They did a follow-up study that was published more recently in Cell, which is another peer-reviewed medical journal. And it was the same group of scientists, but like I said, it was a follow-up. This was not on 280,000 adults. This was on more like 8,000 or 10,000. But what they found was that people who had already been diagnosed with dementia had less, their dementia did not progress. This is of the 7,049 adults, I had the number wrong, of the 7,049 Welsh adults included in the study who had dementia, nearly half had died within the following 9 years, but among those who had received the shingles vaccine, only 30% had died. So not only does the shingles vaccine lower your risk of getting dementia by 20%, but if you already have dementia, the shingles vaccine reduces the probability of your dying by about 30%, of dying of the dementia. I'm assuming Alzheimer's is included in this bundle. I haven't read the articles. I'm just reading the kind of pop science summary of it. But speaking of Bob Kennedy, him and reality TV star Sean Duffy, who was also a Fox News guy, and so, of course, Trump hired him to head up the Federal Aviation Administration. He's in charge of our airports and our airplanes and our, air traffic and everything. Sean Duffy and Bob Kennedy showed up at the airport in D.C. to do a little taxpayer-funded PR stunt and announce $1 billion in new grants to companies that might provide ideas about how to make flying a more friendly experience. Now, they don't have a plan to reduce the cost, the high cost of airport food. They don't have a plan to solve the problem of the air traffic controller shortage, and they have no update on the Biden-era proposal to ban airlines from charging families extra fees to sit together. And they've already done away with the Biden-era thing of, if you get bumped, you get reimbursed. But they did announce this thing, and so Paul Saldero, who's a pseudoscience advocate, he was there, and he said, what if we could create small spaces for Americans in airports to get mini workouts, treadmills for people who want to walk near the gate? And Duffy and Kennedy got all excited about this, and then they did a pull-up contest. And Duffy was only able to do 10 pull-ups, and Kennedy, with all his steroids that he's apparently pumping, was able to do 20. And, Duffy says, Health and Human Services, that's what they do. They do pull-ups all day long. I mean, this is just weird. And Duffy and the guy who was pitching the treadmills, he's a raw milk believer who promotes the carnivore diet and reportedly claims plants are toxic to humans. He was, quote, visibly excited by the possibility of installing mini gyms in airports because he gets to install them, I guess. Pull-ups? Your tax dollars at work. What's on your mind? I'll pick up your calls right after this.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
18 minutes past the hour. Back with your calls for the rest of the hour. What's on your mind? And welcome back, Mark in San Francisco. Hey, Mark, thanks for watching us on Facebook Live. What's up?
Hey, Tom, happy holidays to you.
Thank you. Back at you.
I was thinking that Democrats should really go hard on union membership, making it easier to join a union, making it easier to get a first-time contract. And I think that would really inspire young people to join the Democratic Party.
I agree. I absolutely agree. Unions are the key to having a middle class, basically.
Yeah, and that's why we don't have a middle class, is because we've lost so much union membership.
Yep.
The Republicans have destroyed it, and they ought to make a point of telling people what the Republicans have done to working people. And if young people want to have a future, they definitely want to be at the bargaining table.
Yep. The more unions you have, the broader your union membership, the larger your middle class. There's a famous chart that's been floating around about that for a decade now. But it's no secret. That's why Republicans hate unions. They also don't want a middle class because they see a middle class as being the thing that caused the 60s, basically, that caused young people to revolt and women to stand up for their rights and minorities to stand up for their rights. And they figure if they can just keep us poor and powerless, then we'll shut up and go away and let them just make their money.
It's time to get that chart out, Tom, and show people what union membership did for the middle class.
Yeah, I'm with you. Thank you, Mark. Well said. Timothy in East Berkshire, Vermont. Hey, Timothy, what's on your mind today?
Hello, Tom. Let me get you off Bluetooth. Here we go. Hi, Tom.
Thank you. Hey.
You had an earlier caller, a trucker gentleman who was talking about drivers' rights and what have you. When you're driving a car or a truck, for that matter. And the problem is, and my grandfather was commissioner of motor vehicles, blah, 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 so I have a little inside information on this, but I'm sure it's pertinent in all 50 states. But when you sign on the dotted line for the first time, when you get your license, it's called implied consent.
Right. You've essentially signed a contract saying that I will use this driver's license under the terms of the law that covers it.
Right. Therefore, when you are outside of your car, your constitutional rights are all there. But when you get behind the wheel, guess what? They ain't there anymore.
Yeah, and that's why I remember when we were living in Georgia back in the 80s when they started setting up these roadblocks where they were looking for drunk drivers. And I was so offended by that. I got caught in one of those things. You're just driving down the street and all of a sudden there's 20 cars in front of you. What's going on here? And it's a roadblock. And it was like, this is a violation of my Fourth Amendment rights. And I dug into it after.
And now when you're behind the wheel.
Exactly. Turns out it's not.
Yeah.
You're right. Because once you get behind the wheel, you've agreed to a different set of conditions. Excellent point, Timothy. Thanks for sharing that and enlightening us.
Friend, take care.
Yeah. Have a good one and happy holidays. 22 minutes past the hour. I'll be back with more of your calls in just a minute. Stay with us. Change starts with you. You can be calling your Democratic or Republican representatives to let them know what you think by calling 202-224-3121. It's the Capitol switchboard. It'll get you right through to them. So back when Donald Trump debated Kamala Harris, he was asked about world leaders and whatnot, and he went off on this thing praising a guy named Viktor Orban and saying he's a tough guy, he's smart, he's the prime minister of Hungary, and he loves me, basically. So who is Viktor Orban? Well, it turns out Viktor Orban is a guy who took over Hungary in a regular election, the prime minister, and then turned it into basically a neo-fascist paradise for right-wingers. All the media is now controlled by right-wing oligarchs. He's packed the courts. He's changed the Constitution so that they have things like gerrymandering and voter suppression, so he always wins every election. He throws people in jail for criticizing him, even on Facebook. I mean, this is what Hungary has become. Fox News loves it. Tucker Carlson did his show from there for a week, and that's what Donald Trump wants to do to America. You can read the whole thing over at HartmannReport.com. It's titled Trump's New Hero, the strong man who crushed democracy in Hungary. Check it out.
This isn't your house, Mr. Trump. It never was. It's ours, the people. He rolled in with a wrecking ball of gold. Said this old house needed his brand new mold. Tore down the east wing while the flag still flew. Zero cost to taxpayers. Yeah, we heard that too. He calls it his ballroom, his legacy stage. But the walls belong to every generation, every age. We watch the jackhammer singing through our history's page.
This is our house, not his house.
We the people say, you can't swing a wrecking ball and call it a makeover play. When your blueprint rewrites the story of our nation's thread, we the people rise up. This is our house instead.
Welcome back. 25 minutes past the hour. Picking up your calls here. Tom in Celebration, Florida. Hey, Tom, what's up?
Hey, Tom, how are you doing?
Good. Thanks for listening to Sirius XM. What's on your mind?
Great. What you talked about the past with the 60s revolution is kind of what I'm getting at is, we as a people have stood up against all this tyranny, and it's been shown throughout our history. 1776, civil rights, and what you're talking about.
Right. So your point, Tom, is what?
We are letting our grandparents and our parents down by not. Well, for one, we never told the stories to our kids about, what they had to go through to fight to get all these rights that the Republican Party has been trying to take away.
Like religious
freedom. I have been witnessing that.
Yeah.
I have been witnessing that for 50 years. That is all they have been doing is to try to take stuff away from people and hurt people. And what reminds me of is the Gilded Age and Downton Abbey. That type of money attitude is what we are
well said,
trying
Tom.
to squash again.
I'm sorry I'm out of time, but well said, Tom. That was great. Thank you so much for the call.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
We're hitting the bottom of the hour. I'll be back with more of your calls on the other side of the break. Stay with us.
This is the Thom
book today in the Thom Hartmann Book Club is by Nancy Fraser. One of the things I keep coming back to is this simple truth. When hard times hit in America, historically, culturally, politically, it has never been the billionaires who show up for us. It's communities, it's neighbors, it's mutual aid networks, it's unions, it's people looking out for each other because the institutions that are supposed to protect us won't. And here we are again. We're watching the rise of authoritarianism in real time. We're watching a political movement openly planning to roll back rights, dismantle democratic norms, punish dissent, and silence independent voices, particularly in the media. Trump and the people around him are telling us exactly what they intend to do, from weaponizing government to controlling the media narrative. And what do the corporate networks do? They bow. They soften their language. They both sides of fascism. They're terrified of losing access or offending advertisers. It's unregulated capitalism doing what unregulated capitalism always does, protecting power by suppressing truth. But Free Speech TV does not bow. We don't have shareholders. We don't have corporate masters. We have you. And as long as you show up, we stay free. We stay honest. We stay independent, even if the rest of the media ecosystem caves under the pressure. And speaking of showing up for one another, this season of giving, we're also doing something I love, connecting your generosity directly to grassroots mutual aid. When you give $60, you can choose to have a portion of your gift go to RAM Medical, an extraordinary nonprofit delivering free medical, dental, and vision care to folks in remote and underserved communities. That's real solidarity, real help. So your donation does two things at once. It keeps independent media alive and helps meet urgent needs on the ground. If you're ready to stand up, call 877-378-8669 or visit freespeech.org/donate.
But it is so grossly unconstitutional. All of you know that the only entity that can take this country to war is the U.S. Congress. The president does not have the right. And I was talking a moment ago about the fact that we are living in one of the most difficult moments in the modern history of this country, and Trump just made it that much more difficult. That's just another burden we're going to have to carry, and that's just another message we're going to have to get out all over this country. The American people do not want more war, more death. It might be a good idea if we concentrated on the problems that exist in Oklahoma and Vermont rather than getting involved in another war that the American people do not want. What the establishment wants you to believe is that you have no power, that you can't accomplish anything. They have it all, nothing you can do. And in this moment in American history, what we have got to do in Vermont and Oklahoma, in Texas, all over this country, is stand up and fight back and tell them this is our country. And let me just say this. These are tough times, and you just heard 5 minutes ago, going to be even tougher. But in the midst of all of that, not just for our lives, but more importantly for our kids and our grandchildren, we have got to understand that despair is not an option. That's what they want us to believe. None of us have the privilege of hiding under the covers. The stakes are just too high. And I would like to remind all of you, short history lesson, that throughout the history of this country, what we have always seen.
It hits hard because it's true. The danger isn't abstract anymore. It's not academic. Fascism doesn't always come goose-stepping in with the banners and the uniforms first. It arrives when people are too exhausted, too busy, or too hopeless to resist. It expands when media outlets become timid or compromised or bought out. It grows when truth gets pushed aside to make room for comfort and profit. But that is not what we do on Free Speech TV. We don't trade truth for access, we don't soften the edges to please a sponsor, and we don't pretend that authoritarianism is just another side of politics. We say what's real. We say what's dangerous. We say what needs to be said, even when the powerful would rather we stay silent. And that's why your donation matters right now, maybe more than it ever has. Because if independent media is going to survive a second Trump administration, if movement journalism is going to hold the line, it's going to be because grassroots supporters like you made that possible. This is mutual aid too. We support each other so we can keep telling the truth. And don't forget, a $50 donation this season can also directly support Ram Medical, extending your impact to people who need help today. That is the kind of solidarity that authoritarianism fears. Communities taking care of each other, refusing to abandon one another. So please, call 877-378-8669 or visit freespeech.org/donate. Be part of the resistance to silence, to fear, the resistance to corporate control. Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act. The Republicans started this rant about how the election of 1960, Jock Kennedy stole that election, and there's voter fraud in America. And it became a thing. They started this thing called Operation Eagle Eye. William Rehnquist was running it in Arizona, trying to intimidate Hispanics and African Americans into not voting, essentially. They have now used this claim that non-citizens are voting, this voter fraud claim, in virtually every red state to make it harder to vote, to purge people off the voting rolls, to make people's votes not counted with their exact signature matches. It's a scam. It's a grift that they've been running for 60 years, and the American media won't call them out on it. There's a whole piece about it called Trump and the GOP's Big Lie 2.0 over at HartmannReport.com. Please check it out. You'll find it fascinating.
I really can't stay.
It's cold outside.
Trump won't go away.
Liberals, you've nowhere to hide.
His tweets are so grim.
He's just warming up again.
The chaos is great.
Your outrage is late.
The courts are his toys.
Liberals, it's cold outside.
He silences voice.
Democracy's just his right.
The middle class sinks.
Let's toast it, tax breaks and drinks.
He's stacking the game.
Oh, you'll love the blame.
I wish I
Could stop this madness.
Why fight the Trump-induced
Gladness. Every tweet's a new disaster.
but they just
Make him faster. Can't ignore this growing sadness.
4 more years you'll call him master. The children detained.
Liberals, it's cold outside.
The courts are restrained.
Trump's rules can.
Welcome back. 36 minutes past the hour. Picking up your calls here. Tom in Bridgeville, Delaware. Hey, Tom, what's on your mind today?
Hey, thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
I wanted to discuss an idea for election reform, and it has to do with the Radio Act of 1927, which says that the American people own the airwaves. And since we are owners of the airwaves, we should be able to raise the rent just slightly. And if we did that, if we applied a 1% sales tax on advertisers using the airwaves, radio and television, we could raise $10 billion a year. And that's because the advertising is a $1 trillion industry, broadcast advertising. So over 2 years between elections, we would raise $20 billion. And then we could use that money to give grants to the people who are on the ballot so they can buy advertising, so they can run their ad campaigns, and then we could outlaw all other donations as bribes. So that would curtail people like Elon Musk and large corporations from having such influence over our politicians, because right now they are so desperate for advertising money that they can't resist the donors who say, I'll give you $1 million, but I want a favor later on.
Yeah.
And that's the source of
the problem that you'd run into head first or face first here, Tom, is that the Supreme Court in 1886, theoretically, at least according to the head note, said that corporations are persons, and that, and then the Supreme Court doubled down on that in 1978 in the First National Bank versus Bellotti, First National Bank of Boston versus Bellotti decision, saying not only are corporations persons, but they have First Amendment rights of free speech, and money is free speech. And then they tripled down on that with Citizens United, and it looks like they're fixing to blow up even more campaign finance limits, to allow campaigns to collaborate with dark money pools. That's before the Supreme Court right now. That's being argued right now. So it's just getting worse. We've got to do away with this doctrine of corporate personhood and the doctrine that money is the same thing as speech. These twin doctrines that were invented by the Supreme Court exclusively.
I agree. The simple definition of a person should not include a corporate entity that never dies. Yep. That can't bleed out in war. And so forth, like that, and how money got to be speech. I don't know how they arrived at that fantastical. They twisted themselves into pretzels. That was the Buckley decision in 1976, and there were a couple of Democratic appointees who voted for that. All the subsequent ones, Bellotti and Citizens United and McCutcheon, and they've all been 100% Republican votes. This is the big challenge. That's Louise and I are working on a new book right now about corporate personhood, because that's the poison, corporate personhood, and this idea of money as speech. These twin doctrines that were invented by the Supreme Court. But beyond that, Tom, I get what you're saying. I'm skeptical that it'll happen. Yeah, because before the invention of radio back in 1910 or something, it was not very expensive to run for office compared to say 2010, and it's all because of the high cost of advertising.
Well, this is why in the 1950s, more than half of all the members of Congress were middle class people, and now it's like there might be a couple of dozen middle-class people in Congress, but most of your members of Congress are millionaires and multimillionaires, because they're the only people who could afford to take the risk and take the time and fund their own campaigns and all that other stuff. Yeah, Tom, I got to move along, but good point. Thank you very much for the call and for making it. Don in San Francisco. Hey, Don, what's up?
Oh, hi there. I'm curious, knowing with this administration that the buck stops with the lowest person on the chain, why haven't we heard much about the SEAL team that actually pulled the trigger that killed the survivor of the boat strike? Because it seems like if we went after the SEAL team, those 4 20-year-olds may get scared and maybe not pull the trigger next time.
Yeah. Well, the SEALs teams operate under the Joint Special Operations Command, JSOC, rather than the Southern Command. And that pretty much everything JSOC does is secret. So, you'd have a real hard time, identifying them. And I think also there's, they're generally thought of as heroes. But I get your point. And I'm not sure that it was the SEAL. I realize that the SEAL team was involved in this somehow, but I'm not sure that they were the pilots of the planes that were shooting the missiles. Although I understand one of these actually came from a ship, a missile from a ship. I'm not sure how all of these strikes are happening. But Don, the point that you make, I think the larger point would be that we the people who are paying for this and in whose name these murders are being committed, at the very least deserve to know the details. And that's what the Trump administration and what Whiskey Pete is trying to hide from us. So good point, Don. Good point. Well made. Thank you. Ed in Chicago. Hey, Ed, what's up?
Hey, Tom, earlier I heard you were apologizing for using a word describing Trump's relationship.
Yeah, the B word for women, or for dogs.
Yeah, I would just stick with puppet. Puppet seems Hillary Clinton name it. But anyway, my problem really, and I mean this, my problem is not with Trump. He's insane. I've seen insanity up close and personal, and maybe a lot of people don't realize this, but an insane person can be extremely intelligent and highly manipulative.
Oh, that's true of most intelligent psychopaths. Yeah.
Right. So what gets me is, and I'm not trying to be cute here, but and I'm not pointing you out on this, but I would love to see the Democrats, instead of always Trump, it should be always Trump and the Republicans, Trump and the Republicans, Trump and the Republicans, because it's the entire Republican Party that has gone belly up to a traitorous dictator wannabe. And that's where like I said, Trump is who he is. He's insane. But the entire Republican Party, realizing that, has still...
Right, they're still bowing down and kissing his ass. I mean, you saw this thing with Marjorie Taylor Greene on 60 Minutes saying that her Republican colleagues, think Trump is a buffoon, they hate him, they think he's nuts, but they're never going to say that out loud. They're just, these are my words, not hers, but she said things to that effect. But they're never going to bow down because he has the ability to send, a horde of death threats to you. I mean, she's got over 700 credible death threats now.
Well, we need the Democratic Party too to develop political data to the point where they're screaming enough we'll break through the corporate media.
Yeah, I agree. Ed, well said. Thank you very much. 45 minutes past the hour. I'll be back with more of your calls in just a minute. Stay with us.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
It's the place where despair is not an option. I'll be right back with your calls. And welcome back, Craig in Waldport, Oregon. Hey, Craig, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. Thanks for taking my call. You've seen the news about a potential ICE center in Newport, Oregon?
I have, yeah. And Ron Wyden is speaking out against it, and Tina Kotek, our governor, is speaking out against it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's all really good. The new news is that Oregon State Representative David Gomberg has confirmed that ICE or their agent has signed a contract with it's called the Giant Alsea Resort in a little not upscale oceanfront resort community called Bayshore. And tomorrow, Wednesday, December 10th at 4 p.m. at the Waldport City Community Center, there'll be a meeting to take comments on this. If people cannot attend the meeting, they have until 1 p.m. today, actually, to send an email to recorder@Waldport, that's WALDPORT.org.
Okay.
There's no good reason for
Are you sure it's .org and not .gov?
I used .org.
Okay.
I used .org.
I would double check that.
All right. Yeah, for anybody listening here, please double check that. But this is just a really bad development for this little community.
Yeah.
So I'd urge anybody who's interested to show up or send an email. And thanks. I'll double check that.
Yeah.
Maybe can I send an email to your folks to?
Yeah. Or you could just. Well, actually, you probably can't call back. We're to the end of the show and all the lines are full. But
okay.
You could text. You can send me a message on. Send me a DM on Blue Sky.
Okay.
Or for that matter, if you've got a Substack subscription, you can also send me a DM on Substack. That's probably the best because they notify me by email when I get a message.
What we don't know is who's going to be in there. Are these prison guards? Are these roaming ICE patrols? Are these construction workers who are going to be here temporarily? But they want it for a year.
Right.
And the community's pretty freaked out about it.
I can imagine. Craig, thanks for the heads up. I appreciate it.
Thanks very much, Tom.
Yep. Good talking to you. Bye. Ruth in West LA. Hey, Ruth, what's up?
Oh, thank you so much. First of all, shout out to Mateo and also you for what you do for KPFK and also for all that I learn on your show.
Thank you.
I have several quick bullet points. The first thing I wanted to say is you did a great job on shingles, quote unquote, herpetic neuralgia. I'm a cardiologist. Did a great job. I did not have a reaction to the vaccine. So, just throwing that out there in case, people got scared.
Yeah, we're all a little
also,
idiosyncratic when it comes to vaccine reactions. Everybody's different.
Yeah, exactly. Good for you. But you did a great job. And I also want to say, interestingly enough, I am not a fan of AI. I looked up whether if you got the chickenpox vaccine, would it protect you from, shingles later? And I want people to know I can't stand AI. It went through this whole song and dance, but it never mentioned the protective nature of shingles vaccine. So, so much for that.
Yeah.
I also wanted to tell people about the measles thing. I'm sure people knew, about the deaths in Texas, but being a doctor, I wanted people to know the most scary thing that happened in my internship was a pediatric neurologist who put a flashlight up to a baby's head. The baby had been born of a mother who had measles during pregnancy, and the baby's head transilluminated. There was no brain there.
Oh, jeez.
And it was all filled with fluid.
Yeah, measles is horrible. That's a hydroencephalitis or something like that. Anyhow, Ruth, I got to run. Thank you for the call. It's 49 minutes past. Hey, thanks so much for sharing our program and for reaching out to our stations and sponsors and letting them know that you're listening. It really means a lot to us. So have you noticed that the Republicans are pretty much not talking about a constitutional convention anymore? They used to be gung-ho to rewrite the Constitution. They wanted to put corporate personhood in there. They wanted to change it so that women can't vote. They wanted to do away with the election of senators, repeal the 17th Amendment, take us back to them being appointed by the states. They had all these they wanted to outlaw labor unions, all these weird ideas, but they've stopped talking about it. I mean, they're still moving forward on it, but it's not. Project 2025, for example, their ultimate talking document, does not have one single mention in it about a constitutional convention. Why would that be? Well, it's because the Supreme Court is doing their work for them. I mean, they have overturned Article 2. They've overturned the 1st, 4th, 9th, and 14th Amendments. They've overturned Article 1, Section 7. All the details of this whole thing are over at HartmannReport.com. You got to check it out. Welcome back. 9 minutes before the hour. David in Overland Park, Kansas. Hey, David, what's on your mind today?
All right, Tom. I'm a farm boy growing up, and like they say, they can never. You can
take the boy out of the farm, but not the farm out of the boy.
Out of the boy. So, kind of one of the things I do to kill time is watch some YouTube farm blogs, and want people to understand that most grain farmers, they sell the grain before it's even out of the field. In a way, they sign a contract and they're promised to deliver it at a certain time, and that way they lock in a price.
Right.
And so a lot of farmers do that. They can only do up to a certain percentage. And so the ones that were smart and done that before Trump got back in for this next year, they're going to be okay. But the ones that didn't, that try to catch the market on a high to where they can make the most profit, they're the ones that's taking it so bad.
Oh, that's interesting. Does this have to do with the futures market, David?
Yeah, the futures and all that. So the whole deal with this is it's not enough to bail these guys out. It's just enough to get them through, because it's estimated over $40 billion to make them whole.
Wow.
But
that's what he gave Argentina.
Yeah. One of these things that people don't talk about is Trump did it when he was in there his first 4 years. He screwed him there. But Wyden, part of his rescue plan and all that was to put out these grants to rural communities and farmers to make things more efficient, so they're not using as much energy. They're not relying on the power grid as much. They give them solar panels and all that. And one of the big expenses in grain farming, especially in the Corn Belt, is drying grain. And that takes a lot of propane and all that, and a big grain dryer and all that. So that's a big expense. Well, part of that was if you got a newer grain dryer that was more fuel efficient, you could qualify for this grant. You can sign up for it. And then, of course, it takes a while for the company to install it, build it, and install it and all that. So you're floating a construction loan with the bank that's hopefully going to be paid off mostly by the grant. Mm-hmm. But then, of course, a lot of them, it drug out far enough. Here come Trump.
Did he kill those grants?
And he killed the grants.
Oh, my God.
So then they're left there with their pants down, wondering how they're going to pay for this. They're going to have to go beg to the bank and pay whatever the bank, can demand of them to cover and pay the rest of that off. And several of the YouTube bloggers, they got stuck out there, but, they're still, Trump uppers.
Really?
I just can't believe it. It's like you're getting screwed 3 times by the guy, and I always think of old Scotty on Star Trek. What did he say? You screw me once, shame on you. You screw me twice, shame on me.
Yeah.
But they don't seem to want to learn that.
Yeah, that's amazing.
But people don't talk about that. Biden was doing good by him. He was helping him out. He was going to save him money. And then they turn around and they go vote this guy clown back in there, and he screws them again
on steroids. David, thank you for the education. I genuinely appreciate it. Thank you so much. Andre in Calgary, Canada. Hey, Andre, what's up?
Hi, Tom. I like your show a lot. Lately, I've been watching you, and you've been red pilling me a lot.
Blue pilling.
I want red pilling, like you give me epiphanies like I never thought before.
Yeah, I know. I understand.
And I'm a Canadian, and I'm just like, wow, this is really new. I just want to talk about the Wobblies. Have you heard of them?
Oh, yeah, I know all about the Wobblies, yeah. The union movement back in the late 19th century, early 20th, yeah.
Yeah, international industrial workers of the world.
Right, IWW.
Yeah, they have a famous poster. It's the Pyramid of Capitalism poster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I used AI on it.
Mm-hmm.
Like on top of the poster, it's just the top of the pyramid says capitalism.
Mm-hmm.
And the rest is just like the clergy, the army, the middle class, the working class at the bottom of the poster.
Yeah, they were very into class solidarity.
Yeah, and it was done by a Hungarian American artist who used it at Gilded Age artistry. And I used AI to transpose to the apex of the Wobbly poster the U.S. Federal Bank. And the second sentence I asked AI was all through the lens of dialectical materialism, and it gave me the layout of the scam of the U.S. Federal Bank scam. Like it told me that since 1971, America's been bankrupt because it ran out of gold. Like
yeah, that's
when Nixon gold shock was a hidden sovereign debt default.
I wouldn't go down that road, Andre, with you. But I get what you're saying. I know the argument. I just don't agree with it. But Andre, I'm out of time here. I'm sorry. This is a fascinating conversation. I wish we could continue it, but I'm just flat out of time. Thanks for the call, and thank you for being with us today. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place. In the meantime, don't forget, democracy is not a spectator sport. It requires all of us, and that includes you. So get out there, get active, tag. You're it. Have a great afternoon. Be good to yourself, the folks around you. Stay safe. Happy holidays. And I'll catch up with you tomorrow.
You've been listening to Thom Hartmann. For audio and video archives, visit thomhartmann.com.
You know, one of the things I keep coming back to is this simple truth. When hard times hit in America, historically, culturally, politically, it has never been the billionaires who show up for us. It's communities, it's neighbors, it's mutual aid networks, it's unions, it's people looking out for each other because the institutions that are supposed to protect us won't. And here we are again. We're watching the rise of authoritarianism in real time. We're watching a political movement openly planning to roll back rights, dismantle democratic norms, punish dissent, and silence independent voices, particularly in the media. Trump and the people around him are telling us exactly what they intend to do, from weaponizing government to controlling the media narrative. And what do the corporate networks do? They bow. They soften their language. They both sides fascism. They're terrified of losing access or offending advertisers. It's unregulated capitalism doing what unregulated capitalism always does, protecting power by suppressing truth. But Free Speech TV does not bow. We don't have shareholders. We don't have corporate masters. We have you. And as long as you show up, we stay free. We stay honest. We stay independent, even if the rest of the media ecosystem caves under the pressure. And speaking of showing up for one another, this season of giving, we're also doing something I love, connecting your generosity directly to grassroots mutual aid. When you give $60, you can choose to have a portion of your gift go to RAM Medical, an extraordinary nonprofit delivering free medical, dental, and vision care to folks in remote and underserved communities. That's real solidarity, real help. So your donation does two things at once. It keeps independent media alive and helps meet urgent needs on the ground. If you're ready to stand up, call 877-378-8669 or visit freespeech.org/donate.
But it is so grossly unconstitutional. All of you know that the only entity that can take this country to war is the U.S. Congress. The president does not have the right. You know, I was talking a moment ago about the fact that we are living in one of the most difficult moments in the modern history of this country, and Trump just made it that much more difficult. That's just another burden we're going to have to carry, and that's just another message we're going to have to get out all over this country. The American people do not want more war, more death. It might be a good idea if we concentrated on the problems that exist in Oklahoma and Vermont rather than getting involved in another war that the American people do not want. What the establishment wants you to believe is that you have no power, that you can't accomplish anything. They have it all, nothing you could do. And in this moment in American history, what we have got to do in Vermont and Oklahoma, in Texas, all over this country, is stand up and fight back and tell them this is our country. And let me just say this. These are tough times, and you just heard 5 minutes ago, going to be even tougher. But in the midst of all of that, not just for our lives, but more importantly for our kids and our grandchildren, we have got to understand that despair is not an option. That's what they want us to believe. None of us have the privilege of hiding under the covers. The stakes are just too high. And I would like to remind all of you, a short history lesson, that throughout the history of this country, what we have always seen.
It hits hard because it's true. The danger isn't abstract anymore. It's not academic. Fascism doesn't always come goose-stepping in with the banners and the uniforms first. It arrives when people are too exhausted, too busy, or too hopeless to resist. It expands when media outlets become timid or compromised or bought out. It grows when truth gets pushed aside to make room for comfort and profit. But that is not what we do on Free Speech TV. We don't trade truth for access. We don't soften the edges to please a sponsor. And we don't pretend that authoritarianism is just another side of politics. We say what's real. We say what's dangerous. We say what needs to be said, even when the powerful would rather we stay silent. And that's why your donation matters right now, maybe more than it ever has. Because if independent media is going to survive a second Trump administration, if movement journalism is going to hold the line, It's going to be because grassroots supporters like you made that possible. This is mutual aid too. We support each other so we can keep telling the truth. And don't forget, a $50 donation this season can also directly support RAM Medical, extending your impact to people who need help today. That is the kind of solidarity that authoritarianism fears. Communities taking care of each other, refusing to abandon one another. So please, call 877-378-8669 or visit freespeech.org/donate. Be part of the resistance to silence, to fear, the resistance to corporate control.